Court ordered the NFL to pay more than $4.7 billion in damages after ruling that the league violated antitrust laws in distributing out-of-market Sunday afternoon games on a premium subscription service. The lawsuit covered 2.4 million residential subscribers and 48,000 businesses in the United States who paid for the package of out-of-market games from 2011 through 2022 on DirecTV. The NFL said in a statement it will appeal the verdict. Also last night, the Nashville Predators and goalie Juuse Saros, according to multiple reports, have agreed to an 8-year extension that will keep the netminder in Nashville. That has an average annual value of approximately $7.74 million. The 29-year-old has led the NHL the last 2 seasons in shots against and saves. And this upcoming weekend, Nashville SC begins another 3-match week as they host Inter Miami. And coverage of that game begins at 7 o'clock right here on 104.5 The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Six a.m. and the start of a brand new show, a brand new Friday right here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins and Kayla Anderson. Jackson Williams in for Robert Walsh this morning. I'm Will Bowling, 615-737-1045. Our promise to you, the people, is that when the day starts in F and ends in Y, it is Friday, we are going to act like it.
We don't even have Bert to do the yays. Man.
There you go.
There's no tracking of Ramon this morning.
I don't know why this song makes me think about you, Kayla.
Why?
Probably because the first time because as I realized that it was nomenclature for the show, you were the first face I looked at as I was listening to it, because this is a vibe right here, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually I sing
and then
it.
That's what I'm saying. Then you get a little, I hear you get after a little bit.
I don't want to put, fingers in ears early this morning.
Oh, stop. Hush. It's the only people that sing can do that.
Not a great way to start the season. Mm-hmm. The season, which pretty much starts in 2 months.
Oh, that's right.
Sheesh.
Yeah, 2 months till the season starts. Wow.
It's wild. It's already July almost. What day is it, you guys?
It's Friday.
It is Friday, the 28th. Yes. No, date-wise. Date-wise. Counting down the days till July.
June 28th. That's right.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, anybody born on today?
I know Levis was yesterday.
Yeah.
Schaefer was yesterday. I feel like there were a lot of people on my Facebook birthdays yesterday.
There you go.
That's how I remember birthdays, by the way.
That and when the Titans tweet them out at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, well, for the Titans, definitely the Titans website, and they tweeted out. For me personally, for all my friends and family and all that, Facebook.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true. They remind you, yeah. Hey, be sure to say hello to such and such.
Like your cousins and stuff like that. You're like, oh, yes, it's my cousin's birthday.
Dang.
Shoot.
And you wouldn't have known otherwise.
No.
It's the way to do it. 615-737-1045. Last night, multiple reports say that Juuse Saros is staying in Nashville. An 8-year extension. The value was projected to be potentially north of $8 million, maybe just below it. And it looks like, Kayla, the Titans netminder is here to stay.
Yeah, I'm crazy, shocked about this a little bit. And I know it's not facts yet, but it is reports and probably going to be made official here soon. I was kind of the mindset that the netminder, no pun intended there, was maybe going to be on his way out. And nothing against Juuse Saros. He's been a really solid goalie for this Nashville Predators team. But there have been questions on, is he that goalie that is able to turn it to another level in the postseason? When it really matters the most, is he able to be that solid force to kind of get you to the Stanley Cup playoffs and beyond? Not just the first round, but getting back to that deeper part of the Stanley Cup playoff run, or the final is obviously what they'd like to do, back what they did in 2017. Also, I think, when you pick him apart, and again, I'm picking him apart first before I say all the good stuff. The first half of the season has always kind of been shaky for UC, and then he finds his groove after the All-Star break usually. But they also have a young goaltender in Milwaukee.
Yaroslav Askarov.
Yeah. And I kind of thought there was potential for him to come up and even maybe put Kevin Lankin in that starting spot next year and then groom him to be the starter. But it looks like they have faith in Juuse Saros. And you know what? If they have faith in him, I'm behind it. I think UC is a great goaltender. He just needs to be able to take it to the next level now.
It's interesting, right? At the worst case, you get outstanding trade bait in Yaroslav Askarov, and you're able to move him this offseason. I don't think that's what Barry Trotz wants to do. I think that this is something that will play out similarly to when Juuse Saros was waiting in the wings for Pecorine. And they gave him as much time, and really more time than he needed, in order to marinate into what some would call over-marinate, and wait for his opportunity when it was perfect. So it's interesting. I don't think it's the move I would have made, but I think it's certainly one where obviously Barry Trotz knows a heck of a lot more about hockey than I have. He's forgotten more about hockey than I've ever known. So it's interesting. It again shows you, though, that we don't know what GM Barry Trotz is really like. We're still learning that in real time, considering this is a brand new role for him. And this will kind of be the defining moment of the early part of his tenure as the Predators general manager.
Yeah, but GM Barry Trotz knows what quality looks like.
Well, as a head coach, he does.
Even as a head coach, he had some pretty good guys in minding the net, as you say, right, Kayla? While he was the coach here. Go back to Thomas Vokoun days. I mean, we kind of been spoiled a little bit for
big time
for guys in that position.
At defenseman and at goaltender. It's kind of like left tackle and running back for the Tennessee Titans. It's been two things we've always had in this city.
Is that like a coincidence, or is that really a thing?
I think it's just the way they built their team.
Yeah.
I mean, it was how David Poyle and Barry Trotz saw fit to build something from the ground up. And back then, you weren't like Vegas and Seattle, who were handed pretty good teams. Right. You were awful to start your tenure and had to build that thing over 5, 6, 7 years. They were dreadful when they started. So a lot different of a process back then when the Predators began play. 615-737-1045. One of the many headlines we will get to throughout the morning. Bronny James drafted by the LA Lakers. We will all pretend to be shocked when we dive into that coming up in just a few minutes. VolQuest's Brent Hubs at 7:20 this morning, as he always is at 7:20. And I'm excited, guys, about our question of the day this morning. We would normally do this in hour one. We're not going to today. We're going to get to it at 8:20. Which former Titan would you pluck from their prime and put on the 2024 Titans roster? Is our question of the day today. I felt like this was a perfect topic to have with Brad Hopkins, considering you have played with likely most of the former Titans people are going to want to put on this roster for 2024.
Yeah, facts are a stubborn thing, Will. and it was hard for me to narrow down just one.
I'm sure. See, I might have a different take because I covered this team in a different era. And so.
Well, same.
Yeah, but what I like most is the fact that
this team,
you have so many options, though.
Yeah.
If you think about that, we have been here so long now that when you say Titan of the past in their prime to come back and play for this team, I mean, you could go back 20 years.
Or you could go back 5 years.
Or you can go back 5 years.
So you're going to say A.J. Brown then?
No, I am not going to say A.J.
How about
Brown.
this?
I was curious if anybody would say that.
That is actually a good point, though.
Does the guy have to be no longer playing?
It doesn't matter.
I hope not.
Okay.
Take any player from their prime.
It is kind of interesting. I mean,
like Derrick Henry?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah,
you wanted to.
We've got people already in the chat ready to go on this one.
So save those for later in the show, 615-737-1045, or you can tweet at us throughout the show, at Ramon Kayla Will, for those submissions. Justin Melo will stop by at 9:20 to talk about some players at Titans training camp who have an underrated chance of earning bigger roles. And we'll get into all the Titans headlines with him. 615-737-1045. When we come back, Bronny James, as a Laker and one ESPN analyst, says this is not unordinary. We'll dive into that coming up next.
Hey, are you not able to enjoy this summer as much because you are dealing with joint pain? Well, this is the best time for being outdoors. But if your knees, your shoulders, your back or hips are hurting, this is the time to get some relief. And we have an answer for you. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. Don't suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here, and it is at QC Kinetics. You can call them today. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, and I'm talking about long-lasting joint pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics is under the leadership of former orthopedic surgeon Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup. He's a true pioneer in regenerative medicine, and now he is bringing it to not just former athletes, but you. The advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility back. So stop putting it off and take action today to live your best life again. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation at 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
Friday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Streaming live at 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. 615-737-1045. How you join Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Jackson Williams, and myself, Will Bowling. Do you have any issue with Bronny James becoming an LA Laker yesterday?
Why would you? Let's be honest for a second.
Nepotism?
Though. Why? No, but okay.
Because he's not good? Well, not good is strong, but because he averaged 4 points a game last year.
What about the Antetokounmpo boy? That dude sucked.
I mean, he didn't average 4 points a game in college basketball.
You see what I'm saying, though? Do we have this much vitriol for him on the Bucks roster? Stop it. We all know why he was there. You know what I mean? But how often are we in this situation where the face of the league has someone that's even qualified to play basketball? Now, first off, we are putting the cart in front of the horse. We're assuming that this man's in rotation. I think that there are probably far more talented players that it will take a lot longer than what we're even thinking if it's at all possible for him to make it on a roster. He's got to make he got to make the team. I think that there's a lot more development, even though he made himself available for the draft this year and was grabbed with the 55th pick. What other team was going to get in the way of the potential or the possibility of situations like this happening? I remember when they were talking about Jeff Saturday getting the job in Indianapolis, right? I'm sitting there thinking, they got to be joking, right? This guy's got like no experience, and even though he was a really good player for that team, I understood the reason why Jim Irsay did that. He loves Jeff Saturday, respects him, and Jeff's close enough to the game to kind of understand the nuances of it and can learn, right? I don't even know if he thought that was going to be a long-term fix, but how crazy did that seem for Jim Irsay to do that? He made a former player with no coaching experience really at all, the NFL, a head coach of an NFL team. He
Especially
did that,
in
right?
Football, in NFL, that's unique.
This is almost a similar situation. It's like, how crazy does it sound to where you would draft a guy that experienced a heart condition during a season, didn't really have a big enough sample size to even compare him legitimately to guys like that, right? And someone that was so far out of left field because he just didn't seem to have that kind of ability, even though he does have a 40-plus vertical. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had that kind of bounce.
Yeah,
but either way, it just seems like, why wouldn't you see how this plays out? Well, the only way that you can do that is to at least engage, the possibility by drafting the kid. And they did that.
Look, I look at it in two different ways. I get it. It's a good story. It's unique in the way that, LeBron James, whether you like him or not, he's going to end up being one of the greatest in the game when it's all said and done. And it's very unique. I admit that there would be a possibility for him and his son to play together. And again, we're assuming he's going to make this roster. Maybe it's just to have him in the organization, right? We don't know what the future is to hold with these two exactly when it comes to them playing together. So I get the story, and I get some people think it's an awesome story, and it's kind of fun, right? I mean, father and son, I get it. That's really special. That's really special. But I am a person who believes in earning everything that you do. And that's the part that bugs me. And I know this is a different level, and these are different people, and they're on a different stage. I get it. We're not all treated equal. We're not all considered equal in some aspects. But this is a guy who, if you're going to go by the statistics of what he's done up to this point in his career, this man has played in 25 games. He averaged 4.8 points per game, 2.8 total rebounds. I'm sorry, go look at any other college roster. There's probably a lot of other guys who have way better numbers than that, even in 1 year. And that's the part for me that's hard to get past, right? Is the actual talent. And I'm not saying he's talentless. And he still probably should have stayed another year and developed a little more. I feel in a way, now he's being pressured into a situation because it's all about his dad, where he continues to kind of follow his dad's legacy and is expected to do everything his dad is doing. And he's not his dad. And I know he has his own personality, and Ron Slay spoke about that yesterday. He's not the same personality as his dad. But I feel like a lot of things that have been happening, and a lot of it's not his choice. The pressure is to be like, follow your dad's path. Go with your dad here now. And I understand draft picks 50 and beyond. A lot of those guys don't end up actually playing in the league. So it's not like he took someone's spot necessarily in the draft. But it is a little bit frustrating to be like, well, everybody else, you got to work for everything. But LeBron can just make one phone call and be like, we're drafting Bronny, right?
But he didn't do that because it would seem too obvious for him to do that. But let me ask you this, Will. What if Cleveland would have denied access to Bill Callahan? He's on contract, right?
Yep. They could have.
They said, hey, that's a novel idea. How cute would that be that you can actually go coach with your son? No.
It's also one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. You're comparing him to a guy that averaged 4.5 points per game last year.
No, but I'm just saying the idea of father and son coaching together, it was facilitated by the Cleveland Browns allowing access to him to even have the conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, again, though, like it was facilitated by him being the offensive line guru in the NFL, right? Like, to me, this would almost be like if the Titans already had Bill Callahan and they hired Brian just to come be the head coach just because Bill was already there, right? But that's not, I think it's apples and oranges for me because Brian earned his opportunity by waiting around as being a offensive coordinator under one of the best offensive minds of the NFL. And Bill, it's a seamless transition. It's easy, right? Like it's not just to throw it in like, we devalue the last 10 picks of the draft so much. Let's just, throw in our best players, the second best player of all time, maybe best player of all time's son, just to keep the best player of all time around. This was Woj yesterday on ESPN pushing back a little bit on the idea that nepotism is a rare case in this instance. Do we have Woj, Jackson?
I don't want to hear these charges, people talking about nepotism.
No,
the NBA is full of nepotism.
Full of it.
The ownership level, front offices, coaching.
Yep.
I don't want to hear it all of a sudden because of Bronny James's father plays for the Lakers. Right. It is rampant in this league.
That is go ahead.
I don't want to hear.
Is that fair or unfair?
But isn't this proof in the pudding kind of industry? Let's just say that LeBron's son somehow makes the roster and is on the floor with his dad. Mm-hmm. What would that look like? Would it look like he belongs out there? Would it look like he's
not right now
off the page? Right. You see, so I'm saying the proof is in the pudding. If this kid is good enough to play, if he's good enough to make the roster, like you just mentioned, versus those other athletes that have way better statistical numbers. I was about, what is statistical numbers? It's like redundant,
it's
right?
6-something in the morning, Brad. We all
you see the point I'm trying to make, right?
Yeah.
In other words, if he's good enough to actually make a roster and good enough to be on the floor with his son, it's going to be obvious. I mean, with his dad, it's going to be obvious because it's going to look like it's supposed to. But if he's not, not on step with that, then it's going to be obvious why these things were put in motion so we can see what that looks like, right? It'll be a bad experiment that we're actually watching play out, and people are going to know, well, good night. He wasn't qualified to do that.
Right.
They just did that to see what it would look like. My wife said the same thing.
Sure.
She texted me immediately after they had made the pick, and she was like, oh, my God, the Lakers drafted him because she knew that there wasn't a sample size large enough or good enough for him to be in that situation. They were just looking at the situation. Kind of like what I was saying with the Callahan situation. I understand what you were saying, Will. The point I was trying to make was they needed an offensive line coach here in Tennessee. He was putting together a new roster, right? And it just so happened that his dad was one of the best offensive line coaches. Now, did he have a job already? Yeah. He was already under contract. He was already doing things. They could have been coaching. In other words, Bill and Brian could have been Brian could have been a Cleveland Brown offensive coordinator, or he could have been, or Bill could have been the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line coach. That wasn't the case, right? Those two were doing their own thing in different teams. But now that you've got Brian with the ability to put together a roster, assemble a staff, and he's like, well, I need somebody to coach my offensive line, and why don't I just see if my dad can do it? Oh, but he's under contract. Well, now I've got to go through this gate of the Cleveland Browns to have this conversation, and it just seemed like a novelty to be able to have that happen. and Cleveland allowed it. That's all I was saying.
I just feel like Bronny's on a timeline. I don't think that's fair to him. Bronny is on a timeline because LeBron James, yes, because LeBron James is on a timeline.
Well, LeBron said that.
Because LeBron James is going to retire at some point. So he puts his own son and not, I mean, I'm sure they both would love to be on the same team together. Absolutely. Bronny James isn't going to deny that. But if you really think about it, he's put his son on a damn timeline. And he could have went back to USC. The man suffered a heart condition. He could have come back, maybe not had a great year, but come back the next season, developed a little more, right? But now you're saying, okay, timeline speed up because I'm about to retire and I want to play with my son. Is this the best thing for Bronny James to be hoisted into the spotlight and developed in wherever he goes, at this point? Because the summer league starts up like now. Like we will be watching Bronny James in the summer league. And let me tell you something. There is going to be a Raider on him, whether people like it or not, or whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, but the thing is, he intimated at this situation a long time ago.
Right.
And when you start listening to LeBron talk about, I want to play with my son. Well, now that idea is out there in the universe and people are thinking about it, not like they were really, they did want to see it happen because it just happened. But we saw LeBron speak this into existence years ago, saying, I think I'm going to be one of the first father-son duos to ever play together on the basketball court, right? So now let's see how we can actually make that happen, if it actually happens. In other words, he got fast-tracked from the back of the line at Disneyland. You know what I'm saying? He got fast-tracked all the way up to the front. We should have been sitting way back there in the back.
That's not good for all of us.
Right, well.
Not all of us can be fast-tracked and be the next LeBron James.
Yeah, but
unfortunately,
I don't think LeBron is looking at Bronny saying like, you don't get dinner if you don't enter the draft, right? Like if he really wanted,
that's not what I'm saying though.
Well, you did say though that he was fast tracked and he was kind of forced to go to the draft. Like if he wanted to stay at USC,
I didn't say he was forced. He wants to go because he wants to play with his dad. But if it wasn't his dad, if he wasn't LeBron James, do you think that this would be the case for him in terms of his development? I'm looking at him as a player, not anything else right now. That's my point. As a player, I just don't know if he even knows what's good for him.
So he'd be looking at his own reality, saying, I'm not ready to do these things. In other words, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation about this young man in this ilk if his dad weren't LeBron James.
About that. Maybe he doesn't want to play in the NBA for 20 years. I don't know. I'm serious. Because I don't know if he can ever be that player then.
This was Slay yesterday when we asked him about Bronny, about his future as an NBA player. The athletic ability, certainly noteworthy.
Yeah. I think going in the second round will give him a stronger possibility of being able to hit the floor. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to be able to get thrust into a role. And the young man can play. It's just he's associated with LeBron. Like, if we could take that away, I think you could probably see his talent a little bit more.
For me, he fits a lot of the mold of what a second-round project looks like in this league, beyond just his name. The athletic ability, his ability to defend. When you read the scouting reports, those are things that stand out. He can't shoot threes. However, at the NBA Combine in Chicago, he was one of the top performers in three-point shooting drills. For me, in a league where so few second-round picks make it, sure, draft the kid. I don't care. Like, for me, like the 55th overall pick, I would love to know of the last 10 years, how many of the 55th overall picks are in the NBA right now. I guarantee you it is a very small number.
Right.
That's not a lot.
This is the equivalent of taking a flyer on Deuce Vaughn as the running back for the Dallas Cowboys in the late 7th because his dad's a scout for the Dallas Cowboys. That, to me, is the best example of what this is like. I don't think there's really much to get worked up about with this because the 55th overall pick is the equivalent of pick 200 in the NFL draft. So at that point, like if you can make a little bit of history, if you can have a guy who athletically is moldable, and we don't know how good he would have been last season if he'd had a full preseason, all of these things. Like I just, okay, cool. Put the kid on the team, like whatever. I do agree that there is nepotism everywhere in sports and in the National Basketball Association.
Now, I'm listening to Pelinka. I'm listening to the guys, that are running the organization as to the reasons why they drafted Bronny James, right? So when I say this, I understand it sounds like I'm being an apologist for what they're saying. His work ethic, because of who he was raised by, right? We understand LeBron's commitment to the game and how hard he actually works. Well, that has been innately instilled in this young man because that's all he's ever known, right? And if he wants to stand on his own 2 feet, I'm sure that's going to be an even harder task to separate himself from one of the most identifiable figures on the planet. So if we're just buying into some of the things that the Lakers said as to the reasons why he qualified to be taken 55th, maybe, just maybe, this kid works hard enough to outperform our projections. You know what I mean? Like, what if he gets in there and just gets into camp and just, I mean, his work ethic is so committed. He is just grinding constantly, where it just seems like he has definitely afforded an opportunity. And he could take advantage of it and then maybe make this a reality.
But what's funny is we don't talk about any of that. That's not what that's what's crazy about it. Any other player that got even drafted in that spot, and maybe you're rooting for him because he was on your team or something, but his work ethic's really, we're not even talking about that. Like, but let's give him a chance because his work ethic's really good. Like, because this is such a story connected to LeBron James, King James, whatever you want to call him. I'm just saying, my overall opinion on this is it's almost unfair for Bronny James in so many ways for his own personal career. I get all the other things that come along with it, but it's almost like we're surpassing Bronny James and, you know, what he can do in terms of his timeline as a player and how he can develop because we're basing everything off LeBron James. That's kind of my overall point of this. They can do whatever the hell they want with the 55th overall pick. You know, that's their choice. But it's just kind of a weird situation all in all, just because he's not that high caliber player right now.
Yeah, I honestly still agree with ESPN's Tim Legler that somebody should have just held him hostage. We have your son, trade us all your picks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Honestly.
Snatch him up.
Why didn't anyone do this?
That would be frowned upon.
Rich Paul was it? So what?
That'd be frowned upon.
Could you imagine any other sport where something like that would happen, where an agent in Rich Paul is calling teams saying, do not draft him unless you're Phoenix or LA, otherwise he's going to Australia. That is wild to me. But somebody should have called their bluff just for the content, just for the sake of what would happen. Like, could you imagine the Boston Celtics? We have your son. Send over 2 bags of basketballs, a protected second-round pick in 2025, and a first in 2026.
And you know what would have happened?
LeBron would have gone to Australia.
No, LeBron would have said, I have a unique set of skills.
Yeah, that's right.
I have a unique set of skills.
That's right.
I'm coming for you.
I just would have loved that for the chaos of.
I'm coming for you.
They could have matched the chaos of Texas and Texas A&M baseball this week had they even tried.
LeBron needs them.
Tried to do that.
Yeah, it has been a week, hasn't it?
Selfish of me to ask that question. 615-737-1045. The future of our country and its leadership was called into question last night as the U.S. lost a game to Panama. See, I got you there. I had you in the first half, not going to lie. We're going to talk about that and preview what else is going on in the beautiful game here in Nashville coming up next. What's going on? It's Will Bowling. To all my facility managers out there, how are your electrical fixtures doing? Do you have a flickering light or two? Maybe your power outlets are inconsistent. You're looking to install a generator to be prepared for the next big storm. Well, I'm here to tell you that Lee Company, they are the folks that you need on your team. Available 24/7, 365, whether you are a homeowner or a facility manager. You've got a lot on your plate, and Lee Company, they are here to help. For over 80 years, their expert technicians have been here to make your life easier and to keep your place of business running efficiently. Remember this number, 615-567-1000, or contact them online at leecompany.com. That's 615-567-1000. Professional electricians for any type of facility. That's Lee Company, all you need. Wrap it up, hour number one on your Friday morning of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. 615-737-1045. And the leadership of our country was called into question last night as the United States falls 2-1 to Panama in Atlanta. This game ended 10-aside. Mm-hmm. And it forces a very big one Monday in Arrowhead Stadium. So for those of you unfamiliar, every so often, North American teams are invited to play in Copa America. We are in the group stage of Copa America. The United States beat Bolivia while Tennessee was beating A&M in Game 2 of the College World Series. Last night, they had Tim Weah sent off with a red card after hitting Panama defender Roderick Miller from behind. Just kind of swung on him. Red card, U.S. scores, gives up 2 straight, loses. Now they got to beat Uruguay on Monday in Kansas City. This is a big deal.
So we had this conversation, I believe, actually off air one day, and I was asking you this, Will, who is our soccer expert on this show.
Thank you.
So,
Bravo.
with this U.S. team as we speak, from what I heard, this is a talented team, right? There's a lot of good talent on this team. And this has been a talking point for several years now of, hey, is the U.S. up to par with everybody else?
Right.
And we're looking at this team, and we're like, okay, this is a talented team. So, Will, in your words, can you explain to people, maybe are they underachieving at this point? Is this still a process? Is it the manager that has a part in this?
If the United States does not make it out of the group stage, I believe they will make a change at manager.
There we go.
However, the U.S. has never underachieved at a tournament under Greg Berhalter.
Okay.
It has not happened once. So if you go on Twitter, if you go on social media, you'll read a lot about, well, U.S. underachieves again. That's actually not true. They've not underachieved at all under Greg Berhalter. The question is, when you have a generational group of players, the talent of which we have never seen for the United States men's national team in this way, meaning young, budding, European-based stars. You can make the argument that past U.S. teams are better than this one. I think that's a good argument to make right now, because I don't think this team is as complete as others in the history of U.S. soccer. However, you cannot deny that there are more European-based U.S. men's national team players right now than at any other time in U.S. soccer history. So the question is, how do you develop those players in the most meaningful way, get the most out of them, and set them up for success to compete in the most important World Cup since the last time the U.S. hosted it, coming up in 2 years in 2026. I believe that if the U.S. does not get a positive result on Monday, that you will likely see a new manager installed now. That way, by 2026, you have everything in place that you need in order to be competitive at the 2026 World Cup. This is one of the most consequential games in recent U.S. soccer history. Rarely do you have a game this important that is not a World Cup match. And that is what the U.S. is staring at Monday against Uruguay.
Is the international influence paralleled with what the NBA's international influence is for soccer? You see what I'm saying? You just mentioned the European-based talent that's now on the American roster, right? Sure. So you can say the same thing can be said for 20 international players that got drafted over the 2 rounds that we saw the NBA have its situation. So it's like there's a lot of players that aren't born here that are directly affecting the product of either the NBA or America's ability to obviously put together a team worthy of competing against the global talent.
It's a little bit different because, at least in this case, like, you're representing just one country and going overseas, not 15 different countries all pooling their talent together and then they all come here, right? So it's like, no, and there's also not an equivalent of, like, Christian Pulisic is the best player, I think, already in U.S. history. But he does not rise to the level on the world stage as Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic here.
Okay.
So that's the difference, right? Is that as a country, the equivalent of the United States in soccer to, who's the next best team? Spain in basketball. U.S. is better comparatively. U.S. right now is ranked 10th in the world in the FIFA World Rankings. Uruguay is actually ranked below them in 14th, I believe, going into Monday's match. But Uruguay is, one of the most all-time winning countries in World Cup history. They won the first ever World Cup, actually. Uruguay did. Wow. Way back in the day, back in the early 20th century. So it's an interesting moment in U.S. soccer history because they are continuing to meet previous expectations. However, there is the idea and the sentiment that I can't totally disagree with, that there needs to be higher expectations for this group because we've never seen a young team be this good. And the U.S. is not only young for U.S. standards, they are one of the youngest national teams in the world.
Are we
the
talking
United
about
States
that
men's
enough,
national
though?
team is.
Are we talking about that enough?
Which part of it?
Like the fact that we are, knocking on that door. The fact that we are now have enough players or enough talent to even have this kind of expectation.
We have talent. We don't have knock on the door of a semifinal or a quarterfinal. I think a quarterfinal at the 2026 World Cup would be certainly a significant achievement. You look at the home field advantage, maybe you've got a semifinal and you're not going to win the World Cup with this group. I think the idea out there when you talk to people in MLS circles and U.S. soccer circles is that we keep talking about how this is the golden generation. It's the next generation that actually is going to be the golden generation, because you saw Major League Soccer start to really invest in youth academies more in the last 5 to 10 years in a way they never have. That is why you're seeing this group be able to go from FC Dallas, where Walker Zimmerman was raised at MLS, where Tyler Adams is in New York, and Weston McKennie is in Dallas, and Ricardo Pepi. And then those guys make steps at 17, 18, and 19 to Europe. So, again, it's a little bit in the weeds, but essentially yesterday the U.S. had a guy get a really senseless, bad red card, played a man down. They still scored, and they still lost. And it sets up a really big one Monday. This Saturday, though, you can watch Nashville SC take on a Miami team that does not have Lionel Messi.
Ooh.
Because Lionel Messi is also with his Copa America squad. That will be in Nashville.
Oh, okay. So Messi's back in Nashville.
Well,
he's not playing.
He's with Copa America.
Yeah.
So he's with Argentina.
Yeah.
Chance for them to win that one.
Miami has won only 5 of their 15 games without Messi since he joined the club, but 2 of those are in a row. So they've won 2 in a row without Messi, but only 5 out of 15 with him. Nashville held NYCFC to no shots on target last Saturday.
Is it going to be you,
6th time
Lucas?
Nashville's done that since 2021. It will be me and Eddie Carvacho.
All right.
Eddie Carvacho.
Yeah.
What time are you getting there? Because I'm going in with you. I want to watch the game with you.
He'll be your body.
You're going to be there early.
Yeah, I'm going to be your bodyguard.
I'll be packing boxes all day, then you'll be there early.
Right?
Listen, I'm gonna wear an earpiece and some Ray-Bans.
There you go.
And
You
a
will
black
still
jacket.
be able to see Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, 2 Barcelona legends for Inter Miami.
Nice.
Expected to be in the team. 615-737-1045. Coming up, we'll reset the headlines. Juuse Saros has a new deal, and EA Sports continued its disrespect of the Tennessee football Vols. We've got that for you next. 7:01. Good morning for the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Will Bowling. The Nashville Predators reportedly have a new deal with goalie Juuse Saros. According to multiple reports last night, the netminder, 29-year-old, has signed an 8-year extension and will sign that when the new league year begins on July 1st, carrying an average annual value of approximately $7.74 million. Saros finished 5th in the Vezina Trophy voting as the league's top netminder after backstopping Nashville to the playoffs last season. The past 2 years, he has played the most games, seen the most shots, and made the most saves among NHL goaltenders. The NBA draft concluded yesterday. Bronny James is headed to L.A. to play with his dad, LeBron, after he was drafted by the Lakers with the 55th overall pick. LeBron and Bronny become the first father-son duo to be active at the same time in NBA history. And this upcoming weekend, Nashville SC begins another busy 3-match week as they host Inter Miami. Coverage of that game beginning at 7 o'clock tomorrow night right here on 104.5 The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2 begins right now on this Friday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Jackson Williams in for Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling, 615-737-1045. I guess Bert has decided to join Ramon on his presidential vacation plan. Unbelievable. Out on the golf course somewhere, lying about their handicaps.
Man, I need to get on that plan soon.
I kid. Ramon is on vacation, but he's working as a full-time baseball dad.
Is he still doing the baseball stuff, or are they actually like getting a vacation?
I believe they are baseballing.
Yeah, Ramon's at that part of his life where the kids' extracurricular or their lives kind of
is the vacation.
They take over your life.
Right.
Very well deserved.
Absolutely. And you know what? I love it. I love being in the situation of going to showcases and, you know, watching my daughter dance at the ABC situation down there in Disney World. Man, just supporting your kids do stuff. It's like, that's what it's all about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. 615-737-1045, our number. VolQuest's Brent Hubs will join us coming up in 15 minutes. We'll have some Vols recruiting notes on the football side of things, in addition to our weekly question at this point about a Tony Vitello extension. Speaking of extensions, the Nashville Predators, according to multiple reports last night, are keeping Juuse Saros on an 8-year deal for an average annual value of just under $8 million. The Tennesseans' Alex Doherty caught up with Barry Trotz. They had an exclusive conversation going into this weekend for the NHL draft, and a story that was posted yesterday saying that trading one of the two goalies is, quote, very unlikely as the team heads into the weekend. Of course, the goalies, Juuse Saros and Yaroslav Askarov. Turns out, Caleb, that was 100% right.
Yeah. And so here we go. That's going to be the future of goaltending for the Preds for the foreseeable future. And we were mentioning here at some point in a break, just, there's anything that can happen. Just because he's signing an 8-year extension doesn't mean things can't happen in the future, right? I mean, there's always trades. There's always things that there could be a sooner exit than 8 years. So if he continues to play at that level and can get this team to the next level in terms of the playoffs, which needs to happen, and I think for not only fans but for the organization to get back to the relevance of being mentioned as one of those top teams in the league right now. Because in the NHL, what's fascinating about it right now is, there's a lot of teams that have an opportunity to win the Stanley Cup year in and year out. We've seen it with Florida teams. These Florida teams that it's not like they're known for, winning Stanley Cups every single year, but really in the past 5 years, they've won 3 of them, 2 being the Tampa Bay Lightning and one being the Florida Panthers that just won it all this year. So why can't Nashville? Why can't Nashville Predators be in the mix of a team that's not traditional to win it?
Even when UC was down, though, that was still it was still mid. The guy's been pretty good. He's actually been really good.
Yeah.
Fifth of the Vezina Trophy voting yesterday.
Exactly. Finishing top 6 in Vezina voting for the fourth straight year.
That's fine. You have to get them past the first round. And it's not all on him. I'm not saying it's all on him. But he is a big part of that conversation because goaltending in the playoffs is amongst the best there is. Why did the Panthers probably win? Sergei Bobrovsky is a huge part of it.
Sure.
I'm telling you, it comes down to the goalies when it's all said and done.
And that is the gamble they're taking because I think it would not be the worst thing to do a full rebuild, trade Saros now with a lot of value, take a risk on Yaroslav Askarov and say, good luck, learn how to do it. You might fail, but if you fail, then we get a top 5 to 10 pick and we get to sign a legitimate first-line scorer that is at the elite level of one of the top 5 to 10 forwards in the NHL by the time they're in their prime. And that is the thing that this franchise continues without. They have not had that. And I think it is going to be difficult on the other side of the ice for the Predators to contend for a Stanley Cup without taking that risk that would allow you to either have a really good netminder that's young on a cheap contract that allows you to have the space to sign a guy like Steven Stamkos and overpay for a forward like that who's going to come in and lead you from the front. Or if things don't work out with Askarov, he's not very good. He's only 22. He takes time to learn. Great. You suck enough to get a really good forward in the draft. And then again, it's like being able to get a quarterback at the top 5 in that point. That is where I feel like the Preds are always not willing enough to do the full rebuild. They try to run it back for me far too often. I think this is a very David Poile move by Barry Trotz. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative. I do think, though, that the Predators are going to continue to be run in the same way. They're going to try to piece this together with both of those guys and start with a solid foundation at the back, and we'll see if it works.
Why should we blame them for not wanting to quit, man? They're saying, hey, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, when reality may be that they can't. But who are we to tell them that they can't just try and continue to do it until it actually works? But like you said, that keeps them right there in the middle of the pack. They don't qualify as a team that can actually take a high draft pick because they don't stink that bad, but they're still struggling to still be considered one of the better teams or against better teams because of a lack of talent or player of that caliber. So 6 of one, half dozen of another, the conundrum of what you do.
I'll say this too. Askarov could at some point take over that starting goaltending spot. And the worst thing you could have is at maybe that point, Saros be your backup.
And then all his trade value's gone at that point.
And it is, but at least, you've got a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I don't hate the move. Certainly don't hate the move, but I worry about the lack of a legitimate frontline forward, and maybe they feel like they can still lure one with a trade elsewhere or with other prospects. That they just don't have a stockpile of guys that, aside from their 2 netminders, have a tremendous amount of value that will allow you to get a guy that is immediately ready to come in and be the dude. But we'll see. Maybe they can still sign Stamkos.
I don't think Predators fans want the Predators to be in the position to be able to take a high pick because that means that things have gotten really bad here. Yeah, I mean, we can go get us a super rook like Chicago's. What's that kid's
Connor
name?
Bedard.
Exactly.
Ugh.
But
I love Connor Bedard.
But you've got to be in that position to be able to grab that.
That's because I'm not a Blackhawks fan because I'm from Nashville.
Yeah, don't hate that. Don't hate the fact that the guy's good.
Chicago sucked at the perfect time to get a generational superstar that the Predators have never had. Of course I hate the guy.
And that's what I'm saying. The Predators, and nor do the fans want them to go through those type days to be able to qualify to get a guy of that caliber.
They've been running too much in the middle, though. That's the thing.
That's what we're talking about.
They're in the middle.
Right smack dab in the middle. Stuck in the middle with you.
Mm-hmm. Stuck in the middle with you.
Yesterday, EA Sports released the top 25 offenses and defenses in the EA college football video game. Tennessee did not make either list. This is a list of the offenses that I have issue with making this list. Memphis. First of all, obviously, I'm going to start.
Of course, you're going to say that.
In no world, in no world is Memphis better than Tennessee at offense this year. Virginia Tech, okay,
yeah.
UCF, the Gus Bus.
Okay.
I don't even think UCF fans would agree with that. Clemson, nope, and Kansas. Tennessee is probably a top 10 offense in college football, much less just top 25.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I saw that the other day pop up on my screen, and I thought I was misreading it a little bit. I was like, is this correct? Because I didn't see Tennessee, and Tennessee's the first team, obviously because we talk about Tennessee, I looked for. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm missing something here. But clearly that was picked up by other people as well as maybe let's just call it a misprint on their part. I don't get it. Tennessee is, when you talk about Tennessee right now under Heupel, what do you talk about? You talk about their offense.
Talk about their quarterback.
They have riled up the most online fan base of any fan base in an effort to get the game in front of more people and have people like us talking about the video game on Sports Talk Radio. And they've achieved.
They did.
Unfortunately. Not in the top 10 home field environments and not a top 25 offense.
Yeah, the home field environments too. That one got me.
We will not
for
forget.
some of the other ones.
Receipts are kept.
Oh, that's subjective. How do they come up with those measurables?
Brady
anyway?
Quinn, by the way, gave y'all a lot of props this morning on Two Pros and
I heard
Cup of
him
Joe.
say that.
He was like, Tennessee is legit one of the loudest stadiums. He goes, it's somehow also how it's built and the sound kind of stays in. He had brought that specific thing up about it.
He also brought up the fact that it hasn't been that competitive. Well, what he thought anyway, because I thought that the Alabama game, maybe a couple of seasons ago or last year, whenever it was, that packed the house. He was talking about their ability in Knoxville to pack Neyland Stadium. And I've never seen them down. I mean, it seems like every time there's a home game, if it's a quality opponent, of course, somebody worth packing the house for, they have no problem in doing that. I mean, I can't wait to see what they've been talking about, this black jersey or the black unis that Josh was talking about.
Right.
Gee, let me see some of that.
Baseball
I'm not even
team
a real I'm a volunteer
You're
by
a
my
volunteer
daughter,
dad.
but I'd love to see some situations like that. I love the little situations that they're creating. It's cool.
Coming up next, VolQuest's Brent Hubbs joins us, as he does every Friday here on the show. We'll ask about a Tony Vitello contract extension and get the latest Vols recruiting news coming up next. Friday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster. Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Joined as we are every Friday at 7:20 by our good friend Brent Hubs of AllQuest and On 3. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Good morning. How's everybody?
Good.
We are great, Brent. And I please just hope that the first question I don't ask you, you don't reply and say, well, that's selfish of you to ask me that at this point of the morning. So we're just going to work through, Brent, this morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Man.
I've been in the bean patch, so I'm not sure what I've missed this morning, but it sounds like it's been entertaining.
Oh, no, well, just the Jim Schlossnagel of, selfish questions and all of these things.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, how bad is that? How bad is that?
Embarrassing.
It was.
It's one of those, here's my question. All right, is Texas? Did they want to stick it to A&M so bad that they made their new coach and cast him in such a bad light that now he's having to answer every question to every recruiting transfer about his honesty and what he's done? Mm-hmm. I mean, why don't you just wait and fire your head coach at Texas on Tuesday morning and announce your new coach at noon Tuesday afternoon, and he never has the press conference moment? What was the point in Texas firing their coach to hang their new guy out to dry in a press conference where the whole world's watching because it's the final college event of the year when they ask him that question? Just dumb. I don't understand administrators sometimes. It just makes me shake my head.
I'm with you, and Brett, that's why I wanted to bring it up too, because it's just it's the uniqueness, right, of college sports, right? That even just in that rivalry, like of all the big brother and little brother concepts in all of college sports, like that Texas and Texas A&M rivalry, like we were asking people in Omaha, like, so is your coach going to Texas? Like, no, those dirty idiots, they're just trying to distract us and all these things. And it's just, don't we just love college sports, Brent? We get just stupid stuff like this.
Oh, I mean, we love it from from afar, to look at it and watch it happen. I mean, the guy who asked the question, I know him and his organization. He knew the answer to the question before he ever asked it. I mean, he knew Jim was leaving. He had it 100% that he was leaving. So he waited till the end of the press conference, right? All the questions about the game had been asked, and then he asked the guy, and the coach makes a fool of himself, and then he comes back, and it's a week of half-hearted apologies anyway, so he gives some type of half-hearted apology the next day when he's wearing his Tennessee orange at a Texas press conference. And it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, y'all made this really hard on the dude. Now, he made it hard on himself, but, like, why create – I mean, you're just trying to one-up him? Like, what are we doing? It just makes no sense to me. But, hey, it's the beauty of college sports, and Trev Alberts is figuring out the SEC's a little different.
Hey, horns down. Horns down.
Absolutely.
You can't do that.
15-yard penalty.
You can't do such a thing.
That's a 15-yard penalty on Kayla until the end of the interview. All right, well, Brent, let's go to the classless Tony Vitello then. Speaking of half-hearted apologies, I'm kidding.
You just want me on all kinds of soapboxes this morning.
Brent,
Why are you apologizing for that?
I know. That's exactly what Bert said.
Just stick to your opinion.
I know. You were having a nice morning, Brent, and the bean patch. I'm out here getting you riled up before we even ask you a question about Tony Vitello. That's on me. Brent, Tony Vitello, obviously an amazing week. I know you were there for the parade. Just incredible scenes at Knoxville this week and celebrating that national championship. What is next now as his camp and Danny White and the university continues talks on an extension?
Well, I mean, it's going to get done. It's just, and it was done in principle before they won the national championship. And if I were an agent and I were Tony's agent, I would have reminded Danny White, hey, the last head coaching contract you wrote, you put a clause in there that said, if your coach wins the national title, and that's Kim Caldwell, she's the highest paid coach in her sport. Well, my guy just won it, so let's make him the highest paid coach in the sport. And so that's where they're at. They're just trying to hammer out the final details. I don't think Tony Vitello is worried about it. He and Josh Elander are at the Cape Cod League right now evaluating talent, transfer portal talent, and other junior college talent and guys out there. They're awaiting the draft to see what's going to happen with their potential returning players and their incoming signees. And it's business as usual for Tony Vitello while his agent works on a new deal. And it'll get done. How quickly Tennessee's trying to get it done really quickly, and I think they're close. So maybe next week at some point that'll get announced. But I don't think anybody at Tennessee or in Vitello's camp is worried about Tony leaving at this point. And they're out working their roster, and Danny White's going to write a big check, a big one, a really big one.
From VolQuest.com, he is Brent Hubbs, and you're right about that. Xander Sechrist, when he was on with us, he even mentioned, of course, the fact that Tony should get that kind of contract. I was looking at Kevin O'Sullivan, who's been at Florida since 2008. Of course, Corbs sets the bar for, the highest paid college baseball coach, and he's been at Vandy since 2003. Brent, I'm of the opinion that Tennessee is the perfect program for Tony Vitello to kind of pursue that type of legacy. What do you think?
Oh, no question. I mean, and look, he got 7 years invested in creating this thing. I don't think he wants to go start it and try to do something anywhere else. I think this administration has been behind him. They've been supportive of him. They're obviously putting a ton of money into a baseball stadium to continue to grow this brand. And I think, Tony likes Knoxville. I think he's loyal. And I think he's in a position that he can go to, he's not going to go back and win it next year, I don't think. But he's in a position that they can be a regular guest in Omaha and have a chance to win it. And that's what you're trying to get to if you're going to make the financial investment into baseball the way Tennessee is. That's the results you're looking for. And Tony Vitello has certainly given you those results. And I think we'll continue to give those results. Now, the question is going to be, can he keep his staff together? He's certainly committed to doing that. Tony's not worried about his paycheck as much as he wants to make sure that his staff is properly taken care of and that they're one of the highest paid staffs in the country, if not the highest paid staff in the country, because any conversation with Tony Vitello will tell you that he knows it's not about him. It's about the people that's around him, and he's got a great staff. We'll see how long Frank Anderson wants to continue to coach. Elander's going to be a head coach at some point, but he can be selective if you're paying him enough money. And then obviously Tony Vitello speaks glowingly of his strength coach and his importance to the program, so they want to keep him as well. So there's plenty to get done, and that's what they're working on right now. But to answer your question, Brad, yeah, I think Tennessee's a perfect fit for Tony Vitello. He can win a lot of political offices in East Tennessee and around the state right now, that's for sure.
Hey, D1 Baseball said that Blake Burke and Christian Moore were first-team All-Americans. They even said that sophomore Dylan Dreiling was a third-teamer. Did they forget anybody, Brent?
I don't know if they forgot. I mean, I think that Drew Beam had a really good year. I don't know if it was All-American or not. Christian Moore should have gotten more praise, should have gotten more accolades than what he got throughout the year. Hard to believe he wasn't the best player in the SEC and wasn't a Golden Spikes Award finalist and things like that. But, no, I mean, I think this team liked having a chip on their shoulder that they were, didn't get some of those accolades. I think it was probably healthy for them to keep an edge about them. But this team was about a team. I mean, and that's the beauty of this season. They had a lot of really good players, and you're going to see that in the draft. A lot of really good players. But it was different guys every night seemingly doing something for Tennessee to get to the point. I mean, Xander Sechrist comes out of nowhere the back half of the season. I mean, he got roughed up early in the year. He wasn't a weekend guy. He becomes a weekend guy. And he was Tennessee's best pitcher really down the stretch of the season. And then you get to Omaha, and Drew Beam was terrific in Omaha. I mean, just terrific. And, it was Tears making plays, and it was Dreiling, and just a bunch of different guys, making plays. And that's what you have to do in that sport, because that sport is such a grind that you can't win it with two or three guys. You got to win it with a collection of guys. And that's what Tennessee did, which is what made this team so special and so fun to watch all year long.
Brent Hubs, our good friend from VolQuest, joining us every Friday here on RKW. So clearly a lot of support in Omaha over the weekend. When it came to the Tennessee staff, you saw Josh Heupel there. You saw Rick Barnes there. obviously Peyton Manning in the house as well. How much does it show, and does it put any pressure now on any of those two programs, just the support of these other programs and Tennessee as a whole, but also saying, hey, now we need to go get it done?
Well, if you don't think some people had fun jokingly with Josh Heupel and Rick Barnes after in the after evening party, if you will, the gathering celebration of, hey, you're on the clock, it's up to you, it's your turn. Yeah, sure they did. I don't think it puts any more pressure on it. I mean, everybody's going to the same goal, and I mean, Rick Barnes played in a Final Four game. It just happened to be in the Elite Eight against one of the two best teams in the country and Purdue last year. I mean, that was a heck of a run that team made, and Josh Heupel's growing, and his program's improving. They've got a quarterback they believe they can do some special things with, but you got to go out and prove it. And I mean, everybody's committed to trying to do something. I think what it says about all of them being there. And you saw it in a lot of the videos and stuff, just how the camaraderie that they have within this athletic department. Those guys generally like each other, and they're highly supportive of each other. And, Tony Vitello will show up at a basketball practice and watch basketball practice. He'll come to a scrimmage, and Josh Heupel will be at baseball games, and Rick Barnes will be at football. And I mean, Rick Barnes was the first guy to make the porch really cool. He's out there grilling out on the porch as a basketball coach, and they generally support, care for one another, and want each other to win. And there was no way those guys were not going to be there for Tony Vitello on Monday night. And yeah, that's what you're looking for in the athletic department. And this athletic department's gone through years where there was jealousy, and there wasn't that camaraderie between coaches. I mean, a sport was jealous of football, or somebody was jealous of another sport, and that's certainly not the case right now, which, again, makes Danny White's job pretty easy. And I think that it makes the athletic department as healthy as it's been in a long, long time.
Speaking of Rick Barnes, gave Dalton Connect a chance last year to become a better player, and that he did, getting drafted this year in the NBA draft in the first round, 17th overall to the Los Angeles Lakers. Look, I think it was a little bit too big of a drop just because he was 23. Give me at the age of 23. I would love that again. But in all seriousness, Brent, is it a good fit? Do you like that?
I don't know. I mean, he can go in, step in, and be in a role right away and play. I don't think it's better than going to a team that was, had the worst record and they're in a complete rebuild mode and all that kind of thing. I chuckle at the age thing, because do we really know how old all those Europeans are when they come over? I mean, do we think they're all 19?
Yeah.
Right.
And that they're just, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, some of those guys are like some of the kids that pitch in the Little League World Series, right? We're like, that guy's like 17 pitching or whatever. I mean, I kind of chuckle at now all of a sudden, after the great, pre-draft stuff and all the praise that Dalton Connect got,
right? We
got to draft night, and all of a sudden he's too old. Like, I don't get the whole notion that he's suddenly too old. Like, we didn't know a month ago when everybody was projecting him in the top 10 that he was 23.
Yep.
I mean, we just learned his age. I mean, I think that notion is pretty crazy. I don't know why he dropped. I have a hard time buying the whole age deal. Maybe it was just fit with some people, but I think the Lakers got a really good player. I think the guy's driven. I think this is only going to push him further. He loves being doubted. That's been, part of his story, is being doubted for so long and proving everybody wrong. So I think it's a perfect fit from that standpoint. And, if you get to play with LeBron and where the Lakers are right now, I think he can step in and be a sixth man, be some instant offense for you that way, and probably not the worst thing. Now, he's playing for a coach who's never coached before, so that's an interesting concept. We'll see how that goes. He goes from a Hall of Fame coach to a guy who was coaching in a youth league who's now an NBA coach. So we'll see how all that works. That's the only drama that you got in L.A. is how does the J.J. Redick thing work with LeBron and all these other guys out there that are veteran players. I mean, how's he going to manage that locker room will be pretty fascinating to watch.
Brent, on the football side, a lot of dominoes waiting to fall with a couple of big prospects. Jaden Parlati, you guys wrote about in the VolQuest War Room. Shady Hayward, another guy Tennessee is in the mix for. Who, in your opinion, is the next domino to fall as Tennessee continues to pursue them, Travis Smith and David Sanders as well?
Well, I think Deshaun Brame, who's the tight end from Kansas, is going to do something on Saturday. That's Tennessee. I say Saturday's tomorrow. He's going to do something tomorrow. That's Tennessee and Oregon when it's all said and done. I think Tennessee did a terrific job with him in terms of making him comfortable in Knoxville. So I think a lot of this is going to be about his comfort level in the offense, his comfort level living in Knoxville versus Eugene, Oregon when it's all said and done. Tennessee's very much in that one. Most of the national people have Oregon. That is a lock. They've had him as a lock to Oregon for forever. He may end up at Oregon, but I don't think it's as big of a laydown as everybody thought it was going to be. So we'll see what happens with that one tomorrow. Then you get into July, and you start to see some conversations. I mean, Pilates is a guy that, again, I think Tennessee's made a big push with. Christian Gass is another linebacker that Tennessee's right there with. I think they're trending in the right direction with Travis Smith right now, the wide receiver from Atlanta Westlake. I think Shady Hayward is the safety from down in Atlanta, from Toombs County. I think they're in good shape with him right now. Now, you got to get to the finish line, right? Lots of things can happen during the dead period here over the next couple of weeks, but I think Tennessee's put themselves in a position that July can be a really happy month for all Tennessee football fans when it comes to recruiting. Now, I would have said the same thing to you last year, and it didn't finish the way Tennessee wanted to in July. They missed out on some guys. So you still got to get it across the finish line, but it feels like Tennessee's put themselves in a great spot with some quality players right now. David Sanders, that's Tennessee, Ohio State. His family's moving into decision-making mode. They're going to sort through everything over the course of the next couple of weeks and then go from there. They've had a whirlwind tour. They've been all over the country, as most kids have. They were shutting it down to, as a family, spend some time and kind of weigh all the pros and cons and then go from there. I don't think Tennessee could have done anything more or anything better than they've done. The question is, will it be enough in the end with Ohio State? And we'll find out. But I don't think, if you're Tennessee, I don't think you feel like, man, we missed this opportunity with him, or we should have done this with him, or we should have done that. I don't think that's the case at all. I think this is a situation where Tennessee's put their best foot forward. The question is it enough?
VolQuest's Brent Hubs, the very best covering Tennessee athletics. A VolQuest subscription, a must-have if you are a Vols fan. Brent joins us every Friday at 7:20. Great stuff as always, Brent. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent.
Yes, sir. Brent Hubs with us this morning. I feel bad that even for a second he thought he was selfish.
He was like, I don't know what happened today, but I might have missed it out in the bean field.
I did not play that very well. That's all right. It was funny.
No, it was good. And he had some good stuff after that.
Yeah.
He really did.
I love it. Coming up, a national NFL writer has linked a Titans free agent target to an NFC contender. Maybe some movement in the safety market. We'll talk about that next.
This is your off-the-track racing report, brought to you by Nissan of Rivergate.
Fast cars and country stars. The NASCAR Cup Series visits Music City, USA this weekend, highlighted by Sunday's Ally 400 at Nashville Superspeedway. It wouldn't be a Nashville event without music stars. In this case, Hardy and Luke Combs will be a part of the festivities. And that's all before the green flag officially drops. Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports have histories of success at the track, which bodes well for Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell of JGR and Kyle Larson and William Byron of Hendrick. Those four drivers are currently tied with 3 wins apiece this season. But let's not forget Ross Chastain, who won last year's race on the concrete and finished in the top 5 in all 3 Cup races that have been held there. Sunday's Ally 400 is set for a 2:30 broadcast start on NBC.
This has been your Off the Track Racing Report, brought to you by Nissan of Rivergate. Have you ever noticed how many car dealerships there are in the Middle Tennessee area, and they all tell you they have the largest selection and the best prices in town? I'm Liz Allison. I'm here to tell you how to make your life easier. Head straight to Nissan of Rivergate. They truly have the largest selection and the best prices in town. I know this because I'm on car 3 from Bob McCracken and his team at Nissan of Rivergate. Cut out the dealership hopping and make Nissan of Rivergate your only stop. Nissan of Rivergate, 1550 Gallatin Pike North in Madison. NissanofRivergate.com.
Friday morning rolls on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. And SI.com's Albert Breer says the San Francisco 49ers should sign Justin Simmons. Titans target at the safety position. Writes, I love the idea of Justin Simmons in either the Vic Fangio style of defense he's played in for the Broncos since 2019 or in a Seahawks type of defense. That's why I'd love for him to be the center fielder in the Niners defense, which has historically played the Seattle 3 scheme. Adding at the end of this that rarely does San Francisco, another writer adding this towards the end of this piece, rarely does San Francisco spend on safeties, but perhaps more competition for maybe the most coveted player out there for Titans fans in the free agent market.
Heck yeah. I mean, I think that he's probably the guy that people mention the most as far as a good fit here in Tennessee and filling a subsequent need, too. And when you hear Brian Callahan talk about them not being necessarily finished through free agency of finishing out this roster, guys like Justin Simmons always seem to come up. And I think that a player of that value, a player that's that good, he's going to have his pick of the litter, basically. At some point in time, someone's going to cave and say, hey, look, we got to get this guy into camp sooner than later because he's going to be a difference maker, and we know that, especially from a positional standpoint. I'm actually a little surprised that he hasn't found a home just yet.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to have a certain timeline, I feel like, because of that reason, right? And he knows he's the best available one right now. Even being 30 years old, he's still the best available free agent safety on the market. So clearly teams are looking at him right now and probably put him at the top of the list, including, I would guess, the Titans look at him as being one of the guys they would like to sign. But if he's in no hurry to do that, and if he's asking for a certain amount of money, there's also all the teams out here saying, we don't want to pay that much for a safety. They're all in that same boat. But at some point, a little give and take is going to have to happen because Justin Simmons is going to want to play at some point, and a team is going to need his presence at some point. And the Titans are really one of those teams. They need to match somebody up with Amani Hooker right now. There's just not, I like Elijah Molden. I'll continue to root for him in terms of his development and being able to stay healthy, but I still think you need that veteran presence if you want to complete this defense. And I think they have just as good a chance as the 49ers. Just because it's the San Francisco 49ers and you associate them with winning as of late a lot of games and one of the best teams in the NFL doesn't mean they're privy to get the best players. Look at what the Titans have done move-wise in this offseason. They have gotten some of the best players, and you know what the main factor in all that is? When talking to a lot of these players, the coaches. The assistant coaches that were hired, the coaches in terms of Denard Wilson and his whole personality and why guys want to play for him. I think that might play into maybe getting a Justin Simmons here if the money can work out.
Can you imagine what that backfield would look like actually filling out the prophecy basically of, with Cheeto, Legarius, potential Justin Smith,
Justin Simmons?
Justin Simmons. I mean, you're looking at them completing the side of the ball that Denard was talking about, them having, not necessarily the most questions, but if you were to basically get that back end shorn up, I mean, think of how much better this team's going to be with their ability to clog the B gaps, like what Denard talked about, and still effectively rush the passer by covering all the back ends with, whoever your best receiver is, we've got a guy for him, basically. We've got a scheme for him. And Justin Simmons opens up so much of that playbook on that side of the football to where it just, you almost have to consider the Titans a favorite in the division if you were to add that type of player to this defense.
Mm-hmm.
And you still got the connection between Steve Jackson and Jamal Adams out there as well.
Exactly.
Jamal Adams is out there. That's right. He brings a little bit of baggage, and I can say that firsthand because he played for the Seahawks. But I'd pick Justin Simmons over him, but I wouldn't be so mad if they added Adams either.
Brad, why do you think that all these safeties are still just floating out there? I know we're kind of in that awkward time, right, where there's no real incentive for you to sign until the last week in July.
I think that's what it is. I think for a quality player like a Justin Simmons, he's thinking, okay, well, I'm in my 30s. I don't need training camp per se right now. They're going to ultimately come to me and give me the money that I'm valued at, right? So I'm not going to sit here and be pressed about getting on a roster. I've got my protocol in place. I'm going to be doing the same things on a regular basis to make sure that I'm ready for the season. So whatever team comes to me, they're going to get a well-prepared, extremely talented player that can get it done. And everybody knows that. So there is no urgency on their part to get into camp, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
615-737-1045. A great Titans topic coming up at 8:20 this morning that will combine the past and the present of the Tennessee Titans. We've been following two big headlines throughout the morning, though. One in the NHL, one in the NBA. We're going to go from Juuse Saros to Bronny James. There are not many people that are going to talk Bronny James and Juuse Saros in a 10-minute span. We're going to somehow bridge the gap coming up next.
It's Ramon Foster here for Wesley Mortgage, man. Listen, if you've ever ran to the owner of Wesley Mortgage, Chuck McDowell, you'll know this just speaking to him. One, he's just a dude, okay? I'm going to throw that out there. But he's also just a local Nashville native, man. He cares about this community and is always proud to serve it. If you've ever been inside a Nissan Stadium, you know this. Chuck reinvests in the people in the places that make Nashville such a wonderful place, all right? While other mortgage companies are downsizing, Chuck McDowell and the Wesley Mortgage team, they are rapidly expanding in Nashville, keeping people working in the career that they love, and they would love to have you join their team. Chuck and his leadership team at Wesley Mortgage have a support system in place to help you succeed in the mortgage business, ensuring your loans close on time, making sure you get paid, and giving you back the time to build your business and bring back the fun to the mortgage profession. With unique networking opportunities with the Tennessee Titans and the Music City Grand Prix, they make closing deals and building relationships fun again. So if you're in the mortgage industry and you're tired of the grind, tired of the pressure, and just tired of micromanaging everything to make sure your clients get handled, then you owe it to yourself to go to whywesley.com.
8 o'clock on the dot. Good morning for the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Will Bowling. The NBA draft concluded yesterday, and surprise, Bronny James is headed to L.A., playing with his dad, LeBron James, after he was drafted by the Lakers 55th overall in the draft. LeBron and Bronny become the first father-son duo to be active at the same time in NBA history. In NFL news, a jury in U.S. District Court ordered the NFL to pay more than $4.7 billion in damages Thursday after ruling that the league violated antitrust laws in distributing out-of-market Sunday afternoon games on a premium subscription service. The lawsuit covered 2.4 million residential subscribers in addition to 48,000 businesses in the United States who paid for the package of out-of-market games from 2011 through 2022 and those seasons on DirecTV. The NFL said in a statement that it will appeal the verdict. And here locally, the Nashville Predators and goalie Juuse Saros have reportedly agreed to an 8-year extension, carrying an average just under $8 million per season. The 29-year-old, the past 2 seasons, has played the most games, seen the most shots, and made the most saves among all NHL goaltenders. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Into the second half of the show, hour number 3 here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW with Brad Hopkins wearing the Pantone 151C this morning. B-Hop in Tennessee Orange. That's not Ramon Foster. That's the former left tackle of the Tennessee Titans. We got Kayla Anderson, Jackson Williams in for Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling. 615-737-1045. Before we get to the news of hour 3, guys, I feel like we've got a pretty good source confirming the Tony Vitello, Josh Elander, Tennessee baseball staff extension.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the Ramon Kayla Will Twitter notifications. Mm-hmm. We have the tweet out from VolQuest Brent Hubs, who joined us at 7:20.
Yeah.
Saying Tony Vitello's extension will get done. He and Josh Elander aren't worried about it. They are evaluating talent at the Cape Cod League right now. That tweet was liked by Brittany Elander. So I feel like that's a pretty good source.
Nice indicator.
Yeah. Brett knows what he's talking about, which we
journalistic weeds
already knew, of course, as well.
Let me ask you a question, Will, Kayla. I actually wanted to ask this of Brent Hubs when we had him on just a few minutes ago. If Tony Vitello, Rick Barnes, Josh Heupel are all headed to lunch together in the same car, who's driving, who's in the passenger seat, and who's in the back seat?
Vitello's driving.
You think Tony's driving?
I think Tony would just be in the music and be in the back picking all the music.
Because I feel like he'd make him drive in his Lambo. Nobody else is driving that Lambo but Tony.
I'm thinking Josh is driving.
I would agree.
But I'm thinking that Rick's in the passenger seat kind of trying to help him. Hey, you can park over there. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't trust Tony in the back seat.
And I think that Tony V's got the aux cord in the back.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't trust him.
Agree.
I'd be too distracted by him in the back seat. Yeah,
You'd be distracted by Tony V in the back seat?
Yeah.
Well, like, what's he doing back there that makes you not be paying attention
and he's
to the road?
also like tapping on your head, like, hey, yeah.
Oh, so he's that unruly kid in the back seat?
Exactly.
Throwing Cheerios
if he was in a high chair back there or a car seat, he'd be trying to get out.
High chair.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There you go.
She called it car seat a high chair.
I did. I got the restaurant and the car mixed up at that
a mobile
moment.
high chair.
615-737-1045 is our number. We got a father-son duo in the NBA. I'm going to pretend to be shocked with the 55th pick in the second round, Bronny. Man who averaged 4.8 points per game, 2.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists, playing 19 minutes per game in his lone season at USC. One and done, gets to play with dad.
Lucky him. I mean, if that actually happens, that's a great story when it comes to your pops and your son, the pops and the son getting to play together. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter/X, and one of the things that did make me angry, though, was like, let's not start comparing this to other great dad duos, because Bronny James is not convinced anybody as of late that he is going to be some high caliber NBA player, or if he's even going to play at that level at all. And I saw like the Griffey Jr., like, don't get me started on that one, because, those are two pairs that were pretty remarkable that played together, both very, very high level of baseball.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to not give Bronny James a chance to become that player. My issue, and I mentioned it in on the early segment that we discussed this, is just, I think like everything that has been done in his career has been his father's timeline, because he's the first son to have a chance to possibly play with his dad. Now he's getting that chance. I already saw somebody put out, like, imagine in 2 years if Bryce is there. I'm like, let's not go there yet. Okay, let's let Bryce have at least some time before he has to be put on this timeline. He probably is already put on a timeline, though. But I just think because we don't know what he is as a player in terms of Bronny James, it is really hard, because he's being told now, like, hey, you're drafted. We want you to play with Bron, and you don't have a lot of time to do it because LeBron James doesn't have many years left.
Oh, no, Kayla. I'm doing it. I'm saying that there's a possibility.
You're just going to shove him out on the court in the middle of a game?
I'm putting Bryce out there, too. I want to see the first time ever that 3 Jameses can be on the floor at the same time. There's a possibility. Let's make this happen, right? Well, think about this. First off, 2 things had to happen. LeBron had to obviously outplay the averages of a guy that's been almost to his 40s playing some pretty good basketball still, and to have a kid that's in this sport. Now, with baseball, you do have 20-year careers. It's not an anomaly like saying
LeBron's
a basketball
had a long
player
career, though.
or a football player.
Yeah.
So for that to happen, first off, the parent to still be able to play as long as they have to even make this a part of the conversation, and then have an offspring that has some of the similar traits that allow him to play professionally, those are 2 situations that very rarely happen, okay? So in this instance, we're looking at the possibility of it actually probably the closest ever in history of that being, you mentioned the Griffeys, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, but guess what? That's a baseball career lasting till someone's in their 40s or whatever else. That's not crazy to say that. But in a sport like that's as physically taxing as football, that's not going to happen. You're never going to see
rare.
The Porters or the Marvin Harrisons playing against each other or playing with or whatever in football. That's not going to happen. Right. But in this instance, where you have a guy that has been so instrumental, has been the face of the league, and is playing as long as he has, and he has a son, which is the first thing we talk about when a player of that caliber has a kid. Is he going to be the next iteration? We've been doing with the Mannings for I don't know how long. We've been waiting for Arch Manning, someone that looks more like his grandfather or even his uncle, since he was born. Right. We continue to do that. The Matthews boys. The Matthews family. They couldn't wait to crank out another professional. Those Matthews dudes. Good Lord.
The verb usage there, crank out, is wild.
You know what I'm saying? Good Lord. You got the brothers have offspring, both of them, that their kids are playing. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy.
It's just different for me, because if I want to see that, and I get it, everybody wants a good story nowadays, especially nowadays. Like, it's always awesome to root for a good story or just to see this type of thing actually happen. But, if you just put it to the actual, player he is, we don't know that. He hasn't been great. He's barely played at the college level. He did have that heart condition, so that does put you back a little bit. Sure. But I think if I just base it on like the player of Bronny James, it makes me less excited, because I'm like, this is just like a little story we're talking about, and I don't know how long it will last.
He works hard. That's why they picked him, Kayla. They picked him because he works hard.
Exactly. He's a hard worker. He's dedicated.
We've seen an example of James's hard work and what it can produce.
Yeah.
I just don't care. 55th pick, to me, it's the equivalent of a late 7th round pick.
But I meant to tell you this, too. The first time you mentioned that, when COVID hit and they were in the bubble, there was the 55th pick of that draft the year before or whatever that actually did end up playing in the bubble and having some pretty instrumental minutes. So it can happen where a guy in the same position that LeBron's son is in.
Oh, sure.
Can actually make the squad.
It's just not
and
as much, right?
End up playing some middle. Yeah, it's few and far between, but still, it has happened.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Elsewhere locally, Juuse Saros, according to multiple reports, will receive an 8-year contract extension from the Nashville Predators. The 29-year-old who has led the NHL in the last 2 seasons in shots against and saves. A source confirming to ESPN that the deal is worth just under $62 million, which would make his salary cap hit roughly $7.74 million through the 2032 and 2033 seasons. Saros finished 5th in Vezina Trophy voting and all of the awards in the NHL handed out last night. Kayla, right move for the Preds?
I kind of was on the track you were, Will, with maybe just ripping the Band-Aid off and bringing up Askarov and maybe even keeping Kevin Lankin in there and starting him in net and letting Askarov kind of grow into that role, even if it maybe took the first half of the season or a year at that. But I think when it all comes down to it, they felt like Juuse Saros has done enough for this franchise overall, the overall body of work, to give him an extension. And then they look at it maybe as, okay, we give him an 8-year extension. We bring Askarov off the young goalie phenom here. If anything, at some point he takes over as that number 1 goalie. And yeah, you would lose value in Juuse Saros at that point, but that's not going to hurt the Preds, right? The Preds then could have their number 1 goalie in the young guy Askarov, and then have Juuse Saros as their number 2. That's not a bad 1-2 punch if you can get some other things worked out with, adding another prolific scorer on this team. Maybe you could get a deep run or 2 in the Stanley Cup playoffs at that point. So I get maybe what they're doing long term. They win possibly both ways. But if you wanted to get the most value right now, if you're trying to do things at this moment, it would be, for me, going and getting, Juuse Saros in terms of the highest value you can get him at, and then maybe being able to buy or bring some other center talent in here.
Yeah. The way I see it, I think Barry Trotz has earned the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. The Predators certainly overachieved in the 2023-24 season. So when a guy starts out in a job, they have the benefit of the doubt to begin with until they lose that, for us as fans, for us as people who watch this team closely. So while I think it is a risky proposition, I do think there's an opportunity here still, maybe, where if things go south in the first year, 2 or 3 of this deal, his trade value will still be there, Juuse Saros is, considering the contractual control that the team trading for him would take on, right? So extending him to 8 years, to me, that was my initial reaction when I saw this was, okay, well now, if there is a provisional no-trade clause of some sort, which we feel like is likely going to happen within this deal, I still think there's an opportunity to move Juuse Saros if you feel like Yaroslav Askarov is ready to go at age 23 or 24 in the next year or 2. The value will still be there for Juuse Saros with all of that contractual control to maybe move him in the next year or 2. So
absolutely.
It's interesting. It 8 years, kind of like you see that, you go, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I know, that's what gets you.
Time.
That would tick me off, though, if I sign an 8-year deal and you're using me as trade bait.
But you know what?
That's why you get the no trade clause. Because then at that point you can say, no, I don't want to go there.
Not going there.
And so
going there.
That is what Juuse Saros has certainly earned here at Nashville.
Yeah.
It is. It's interesting. We talked about it in the last hour, and it worries me that the Preds are running it back, so to speak, with Juuse Saros and making it more difficult to sign other stars by paying him so much. But it does sound like, from people who know a heck of a lot more about hockey than I do, that this is a kind of a hometown deal for Juuse, and that he would have gotten over $8 million from somewhere else. So I don't hate it. I don't necessarily love it. I just think it's kind of a wait and see, and Barry Trotz gets the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
He's been pretty durable. Been in that.
He has been durable. That's a great point.
So with that, his durability, he signs an 8-year deal. What's the over-under that he finishes here?
No, he's not going to finish here.
Come on.
I don't think he finishes that 8-year contract.
Absolutely not.
No, definitely not.
And y'all are confident, huh?
Also, with what he has behind him, if he continues to do it,
so you got some pressure to perform.
Absolutely, just like UC or Pekka did with UC.
Yeah, contract and a dude sitting behind you.
For sure. Coming up, our question of the day this morning, a Titans topic, blending both the past and the present. This is the perfect time to ask this question with one of the greatest left tackles in franchise history sitting in the room. If you could take one past Titans player in their prime and sign them to a 1-year contract, right? We're not going to do Steve McNair, of course it'd be a quarterback. If you could have Steve at the beginning of his career, no, 1-year contract. You're signing a Titans player in their prime to a 1-year contract to put on the 2024 Titans. Who would it be? We'll answer ours next. Friday morning, and we are acting like it on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Our question to the people this morning, and you can weigh in on this at 615-737-1045. If you could sign to a one-year contract, a former Tennessee Titan in their prime, could be any era, could be early days, could be past couple years, you could really solidify the victory formation, bring back Isaiah Wilson to just run out there for victory formation and extra point teams. 615-737-1045. If you're bringing any past Titan back for 1 year in their prime, who would it be for the 2024 team? Brad Hopkins, we should certainly start off with you on this one.
So the conundrum for me was, do I go practically or do I go emotionally?
Whatever you want.
So practically, I'd love to see, because the backfield, it's not in as much question as some would think, but replacing Derrick Henry is going to be a hard thing to do. Now, stylistically, it makes sense to move on from a guy that was just basically a sledgehammer, right, into having some more explosive capabilities, catching the ball out of the backfield with this fast break style, up-tempo offense that Brian Callahan will run. But I'd love to see practically a CJ 2K.
Wow.
That's running a 4-2 alongside of this receiving core that we got this year. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine that?
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Didn't expect to get a CJ 2K today.
Yeah, CJ 2K. But emotionally, if I were to pick it emotionally,
Brad Hopkins, left tackle.
I pick myself.
Emotionally, I'm going to take myself on this one.
We did talk about this earlier, though. Like, I was close to picking you and just sticking J.C. Latham back at right tackle. And then your right tackle problems. So
one of my favorite Titans, I have a bunch of favorite Titans, but of course, one of my that's closest to me now is Kevin Carter.
Nice.
Now, that actually serves two purposes. Okay. One, because I do love him to death as an individual, probably one of the best men I've ever met in my entire life. Okay. But from a practicality standpoint, edge rusher being somewhat of a position that we could use some help in, right?
There you go.
In Kevin's prime, he was Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. He was unblockable outside. The dude was massive, fast, athletic, and the worst part, he knew what you were going to do before you did it, because he's a smart player.
Sure.
So that guy, right, he checks off a lot of boxes. So I'd love to see the speed of CJ 2K, but I'd love to see the menacing prowess of a dude that used to destroy the edges like Kevin Carter.
Love that.
All right, Kayla, what you got?
Give me the original accent of red. He brought it to the table for this defense. They call him Mr. Monday Night.
Oh, snap.
He's a player that worked his butt off to get to where he was. He would fit this aggressive, attacking type of defense. Keith Bulluck. That is a guy who, even if you think overall amongst the league in his time playing, maybe was a little bit underrated, not thought of as much. It's not as a national guy. You think of Keith Bulluck as much, but what he did here, the numbers he put up, the consistency, the durability for the most part that he was able to bring to his career here, I just think he would be, first of all, they need that. They'd need that. They'd need his type of play right now. But he would fit this defense and the mindset of this defense under Denard Wilson. So I think Bully would be great.
I like it. I think that's a good answer. In Keith Bulluck and the coverage ability, the just everything ability. You're going to be lined up in the right spot. You're going to be anchored in the middle. He was my 1B. I thought about a lot of different options for this. I did think about the caveat of prime Randy Moss playing in this offense, and that was certainly an attractive concept, right? Because it's not just if you're taking somebody in their prime, like obviously Randy Moss was not in his prime here, but if we're taking prime, Minnesota Vikings Randy Moss and putting him on the Tennessee Titans, then all of a sudden we're cooking with gas on the offense. I did think about just going with Steve McNair and saying that MVP season Steve McNair on this offense, there's no more questions about quarterback at that point. You've got an MVP level player leading the offense. You maybe have less concerns about your offensive line at that point with the escapability, with the durability of Mac 9. But I feel like a defensive pick is required on this. And I am going to one of the best rookie seasons by an edge rusher in NFL history. Give me 1999 Javon Kearse.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
On this football team. That is the one that I'm seeing a lot on Twitter. That is the one that, with no hesitation, was my first pick when we talked about this topic last night. 14 and a half sacks in 1999 and 8 forced fumbles for Javon Kearse. I thought about helpful. Albert Hainsworth because a front three of Albert Hainsworth, Tavondre Sweat, and Jeffrey Simmons would be just absolutely unbelievable. But I think Jeffrey Simmons paired with Javon Kearse on the same side of a defense would be fantastic if you could give me 99 freak on this defense.
That'd be fun to watch, wouldn't it?
Javon, Chris, and I were signing autographs last week in Memphis. And I asked which one of them was faster than a 20.
Jeez.
Now, that is a legit question.
Yeah.
Okay? A 40, I think that CJ would catch him.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Javon, through those first few steps, I mean, the dude can pick him up and put him down.
Sheesh.
And as far as athletes, they call the dude the freak for a reason.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense what God gave that dude physically. It didn't make any sense.
His hands are bigger than my head.
Okay, you say his hands are bigger than your head? Yes, he could palm your whole face,
sure,
Kayla, but I broke my hand and was playing with a cast.
Mm-hmm.
It was cold, and there weren't gloves that I could wear that could cover my cast and my fingers to keep my fingers warm, right?
Yeah.
Hey, freak.
Oh.
Throw me one of your gloves. It fit over my cast.
No, it didn't.
Huh. It fit over my cast.
That is wild.
I was whopping the hell out of people with that cast because I had this glove. It didn't even look like I had, it just looked like I had a cartoon hand. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, Hop's hand looks awful big. You don't realize there's a cast on in there because I was able to put Javon's glove over my hand with a cast on it. Beat the hell out of people with that thing.
That puts it into perspective right there.
Yeah. Amazing. 615-737-1045. That is the number if you want to give us the Titans player in their prime for a 1-year contract that you would sign if you could pick one of them to the 2024 Titans. Let's go to David in Lebanon first up on this. What's up, David?
Oh, excuse me. I was trying to get this high chair in my back seat. I'm having a tough time with that.
Well
Kayla
done.
Louise, I want to know how many clips they're going to have of you this week. That's amazing.
Let's say the last 2, right? My goodness.
but anyway, my pick is a little bit emotional, but professional also, and that would be Frank Wycheck. I can think of he was Mr. Safety Valve when there was nothing else. Wham, there he was, 89, almost every time. And I can pretty close to getting emotional about that. But, I mean, loved him to death. I thought he was underrated. I mean, Nashville's not a big market, I mean, obviously, but, I mean, just so cool. So I love you guys. Y'all keep it up.
Hey, you know what his first 2 words as an Oiler were that I ever heard him mention? I suck.
Nice. No way.
I don't remember when we actually got him. We got him after camp started from Washington. Next thing you know, he's standing on the field next to me. I was like, who is this dude? You know, I didn't even really know who he was. I think I was in my second year. He jumped off sides when we were on the goal line. And he was so mad at himself for having done that. He just screamed, I suck. And we all stopped looking at him like, hey, new
Easy
guy.
on yourself.
Get your stuff together and get over here in this huddle.
Frank is a great pick. I thought about him as well. Yeah. If I'm picking one person for the offense, adding Frank Wycheck to this offense with the weapons you have.
Mm-hmm.
Eric in Nashville, 615-737-1045. What's up, Eric?
Hey, guys, I had to make sure I get this in because I got a feeling if I didn't, somebody else would mention them guys. But it's easy to go with a lot of the popular players and stuff. But this guy was popular, but more the big names. And he is a big name, but the guy I'm going to go with is Kevin Byard, guys. Just the way he played his
that was
position.
my other one.
Where you make the key interception whenever you needed it, knocking down the pass, making the key tackle. And even though he probably didn't get a lot of play, of course, nationally because of the type of market he played in, I know he's respected around the league, especially by a lot of other players. So for me, it's Kevin Byers. Yeah, y'all take care of it. Talk again soon. Have a great weekend.
Yep. Thanks, Eric.
That was my 1B.
Why do we continue to say that? It's just not that type of market. Will Nashville ever be that type of market?
No.
I don't think so.
You know why, Will? Because of what you said during the break. There's a challenge. Yeah.
What do you say? The college football?
Yeah, college football.
I don't even know if it's like. So we were talking to the break about this because in my family, I've got siblings who are 12 and 10 years older than me. And I am the only member of my family who is a diehard every day of the week following the National Football League. The rest of my family are college football first, NFL second, but they're Titans fans. So I think there are a lot of people that have learned a lot more about the NFL since, obviously, the Oilers became the Tennessee Titans. And as more people move to the city that are not bred SEC fans first, obviously NFL is king in the whole country, including here. But still, you still have more transplants that come here and bring more of an NFL mindset over their entire lives versus just since, 98, 97, right? So I think what it would take for Nashville to be a major NFL market is you go on a run like Kansas City is.
Yeah.
Because Kansas City is not a major national discussed on First Take, topic of Cowherd, like things like that, right? Like you become that by winning at an unprecedented rate. That's what it would take for the Titans to be discussed and for Nashville to be an NFL market a la, a top 5 city.
I think it's the South's pushback against professional athletes. I think that they would rather support kids that were playing amateur athletics,
But
quote
that's
unquote.
different now, too.
But that's the thing. That's why they're having a hard time adjusting because there is an empowerment now that at the NIL space has allowed players to be compensated similarly to what professional athletes do. But you never say, well, this player played for, like when you say professional teams, you say he played for somebody. He played for the Grizzlies. He played for the Titans. But when you talk about college, you say he played at the University of Illinois. He played at the University of Tennessee.
Right.
So he played at instead of for.
I don't think it's the payment part of it. I think it's more the deep-rooted traditions of college football being generational. Because we and my family have been watching Tennessee run through the T and do the Vol Walk and sailgate in the Vol Navy way before I was ever born. What are those traditions that tie you in a stronger sense than just the football game to the Tennessee Titans? That has not been built yet.
So you know that I work on Sirius on the weekends.
Yep.
And my producers, the entire people are from the New York, the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah.
Their traditions are completely different. It's not about college sports.
It takes generations, right? It takes a long time.
Are following the Yankees and, obviously the Knicks and all the other teams that generationally have been there forever and they've been taking their kids to see those games. Just like you could say, there's a reason why the NFL is not in Alabama. It's not in Mississippi. Until we got here, it wasn't in Tennessee. Carolina got a team in the 90s. You see, so
Louisiana is an interesting one too. That is an interesting one
because that's not really the South as much as it is like Louisiana and Florida are kind of just their own thing.
It's just
that's
Texas,
their own thing.
Louisiana is the South. Don't get me wrong, but
you know what I mean. Geographically, of
New
course,
Orleans is kind of its own thing.
I know what you're saying. though. It's a different
French
feel.
Quarter,
different feel,
100%.
Right. So I'm just saying, why hasn't the NFL had a presence in those states? Because of the traditions and generations that you just talked about, Will, that have been supporting college sports.
Right. Let's go to Chris in Nashville. What former Titan in their prime would you sign to a one-year deal to the 2024 Tennessee Titans? Chris up next. What's up, Chris?
Man, I think I'm going to have to go with Bruce Matthews. All the trouble we're having on the offensive line.
It's a good pick.
Yeah.
Why don't sound like you mad you had to do it?
He was
I'm gonna have to go. I guess I'm gonna have to go with Bruce Matthews. Come on, man, support your pick.
Good players.
Huh?
There's a lot of good players. There's players, man, but the offensive line, like Wycheck said, I'm thinking they're gonna suck. So I'm gonna take Bruce.
All right.
We got
it. Because in his
He's
prime,
frustrated
guess what?
about that line.
There's been only one player that has been a Pro Bowler at all three positions up front, and that'd be 074.
Yep.
Is best the best for a reason. No doubt.
Cue Tina Turner.
We've not had it.
The best.
We've not had anyone say. We've not had anyone say Lawan, which surprises me a bit. I thought we'd get some Lawan answers. Really?
Yeah, there's been a couple in the chat.
I've not seen that in the chat.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad one.
Most common ones in the F&M Bank chat have been Javon Curse and Keith Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
Vandy Man says Hainsworth.
Oh yeah.
Florida James says CJ2K. And Prime Michael Griffin getting a vote as well.
Have you noticed the consistency?
Defense.
Yep.
Defense. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's got to be.
It's like, you know what? The popular players, sure, maybe offensively, the ones that have household names, because we know that offense sells tickets. But when you talk about toughness, establishing an identity, what you would want for your team to support them at this point, you want someone that can smack you in the mouth.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like you just mentioned, Mr. Monday Night,
Bully,
Mr. Red Gloves. Who was yours again, Will? Sorry?
Curse. Javon
Curse, another defensive player. I mentioned Kevin Carter, even though I said CJ2K. I think it'd just be exciting and fun to watch an offensive player. But when I'm talking about, hey, I need to get some stuff done, I want to be able to keep that other team out of the end zone. And that seems to be what our theme is here.
No doubt. Vote for Kyle Vandenbosch, KVB. Red contact, blue contact. Vandenbosch. That's always what I think of when I think of Vandenbosch, was when you guys would play Halloween weekend and they would make a Monster Mash remix of Kyle Vandenbosch with the different colored contacts through the Vandenbosch.
And Kyle played with just one. He had one gear.
Oh, he did.
Just one gear. Even in practice, he had one gear.
We have had some Cortland Finnegans also in this one.
Oh, I just saw that for the first time.
Yeah, there was a couple more.
I thought about Cortland.
That's my favorite guys.
Jay Royal says, can we have prime A.J. Brown? Well,
I know. I knew that was coming in there somewhere.
I'm surprised we didn't have more of those, too. 615-737-1045. More of your phone calls on this conversation next. Show's flying by on a Friday morning. Already wrapping up hour 3 here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW, Brad Hopkins, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. And if you missed our conversation with Brent Hubbs earlier this morning, we will play the audio of what he had to say about Tony Vitello's potential contract extension in Knoxville. We got that for you coming up in 15 minutes. Our question of the morning, though, is if you could take one former Titan and put him on the 2024 team for a 1-year deal in their prime, who would it be? Dylan in Antioch is up next. 615-737-1045. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, what's up, guys? So I'm not sure if anyone said this yet. I kind of tuned in about 20 minutes ago, but if he could keep it together, give me some Pac-Man Jones.
Ooh.
I mean, that guy was talented all over the place. I guess kick and punt returns aren't too much in the NFL these days, but I mean, put that guy in any position. He was as talented as anybody could be. But yeah, guys, I'm just about to walk into work, so I'll let you go. Hey, have a good morning.
Thanks, Dylan.
Have a good day at work, Dylan.
Appreciate it.
For a defensive player, I loved watching him with the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think he was one of the more elusive. It's almost like he had a video game where he could see the line of the path to travel to avoid the would-be tacklers and weave his way through the field and get good yardage. We were
like Pac-Man?
That's waka, 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 waka. Yeah, exactly like Pac-Man. Well, of course, gobbling up interceptions. Yeah. That's probably where he got the name. But I remember being spoiled with field position when Derek Mason wasn't in the receiving core as much as he was an effective punt returner. We were either going to get a touchdown or we were going to get the ball at midfield to start our drive, which is a great situation. Mm-hmm. Opens up the playbook. I do remember just him being used in offensive situations. I actually was a part of a reverse that he actually had that he scored a touchdown on. But the only way that he would score the touchdown is if I held the defender on the edge and they caught me and they called it back.
Oh.
But I do remember watching. I was like, oh, please, dear God, don't score because it'll be adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
And he sure did. And it just made sense just because of how, like I just said, elusive he was with the ball. It was, I mean, and I love Pac-Man to death.
You were talking to us about him over the break.
I'll share it. I don't mind. My locker was the first locker in the locker room when you walked off the practice field. So a lot of the guys would be, messing with me as I walk by or whatever, as they walk by to their lockers or, just chit-chatting and shooting a breeze. Pac would always take the time to kind of sit down and hang out and just talk. We came from 2 different walks, 2 different parts of the country. We were 2 totally different people. I was in my 13th season. He was a rookie, and just for him to ask me questions and, I don't know, share a joke or 2.
Sure.
He also blames me for his passion for cars. Pac's got 17 cars.
I was going to say, how many does he have now?
He's got 17 cars. And maybe he has 17 now because I had 14 then. And we loved sharing those stories. Well, what are you going to do with this car? What are you going to do with that one? And I sold so many cars to teammates I had, Kayla, I promise you. Steve bought about 6 of the cars I had.
Wild.
I mean, Kevin Long, remember our center from the Super Bowl? Yeah. He bought my Suburban. Yeah. I had a Suburban that I had, I put a 6-inch lift on.
Over here.
He took it to the swamp down there in Florida and got the thing stuck. Crazy. But yeah, just, as polarizing as Pac.
Yeah. I
has
get
been
that,
his career. What an unbelievably talented young man.
Oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. New system on YouTube writes in and says, 06 Vince Young, Rookie of the Year season. We were 1 win away for the playoffs. What if he had been put in a game earlier before we started out 0-5? Vince Young?
Vince Young.
An option.
My goodness.
I mean, if I'm taking a quarterback, I'm taking MVP season Steve McNair.
Yeah, me too.
Facts.
Got
me
to.
Too.
Yeah.
Absolutely got to. David Long.
Wow, bring back
Cody.
David Long, huh?
Another Cody on YouTube was the first to say, I logged on specifically just to say Pac-Man. Him with the new kickoff rules would be sweet.
Unbelievable.
That'd be kind of fun to watch.
He is a perfect fit for the new kickoff rules. No doubt about it. If you could put him in his prime. A couple of guys said Kenny Britt.
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
Surprised to see him on there. Makes sense, though. Again, if I'm going receiver, prime Randy Moss is sitting right there. Or prime Andre Johnson sitting right there. Titans legend. Got a game-winning touchdown in Detroit for Marcus Mariota.
Would anyone say prime Julio Jones?
That's a good question. Not bad. We even got one vote for Ron Baronis.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
60-yard
He
field
was so
goals.
solid, wasn't he?
Nice.
Oh, man. He'd hit one of those long field goals, and you hear the My Baronis song in the stadium.
My
Baronis.
Yep. It was great. It was great. Jared Cook, another option on YouTube.
Man.
South Carolina's
Jared
very
Cook.
own.
That's right.
That was an athlete right there.
He has spent a long time in the league as well.
Yeah, right.
We knew he was good when he was here, obviously, but man, that guy has been everywhere
Cook, yeah.
around the league.
Love Jared Cook.
I love it. 615-737-1045. Good conversation to get the people going here on this Friday morning. If you still want to chime in on that, we could take your calls before we get to Justin Melo at 9:20, who is going to join us talking about some Titans training camp storylines and available free agents. But when we come back, Brent Hubbs was on the show earlier this morning and gave Vols fans a positive update about their baseball coach. We've got that audio for you next. 9 a.m. on the dot for the 104.5 The Zone Studios. Good morning. I'm Will Bowling. The NBA draft concluded yesterday. Bronny James is headed to L.A. to play with his dad, LeBron James, after he was drafted by the Lakers with the 55th overall pick in the draft. LeBron and Bronny become the first father-son duo to be active at the same time in NBA history. In baseball, yesterday, the Braves fall to the White Sox 1-0 in a makeup of a rained-out game April 3rd in Chicago. Tonight, Atlanta back in action as they take on the Pittsburgh Pirates in Atlanta at 6:20. In Nashville news, Juuse Saros is here to stay. Multiple reports have him signing an 8-year contract extension with the Nashville Predators with an average annual value of approximately $7.74 million. The 29-year-old finished 5th in Vezina Trophy voting as the league's top netminder after leading the Predators back to the postseason. And this weekend, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock pregame coverage, 7:30 kickoff. It's Nashville SC taking on Sergio Busquets and Inter Miami. Another 3-match week begins right here on The Zone. We'll have that one for you tomorrow night from Geodis Park. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Fourth and final hour of the show, 9 a.m. in beautiful Music City, USA, as we welcome you into a hot and fresh 60 minutes of RKW. Brad Hopkins in for Ramon Foster. He'll be with us again on Monday.
What are we, Krispy Kremes or something?
Kayla Anderson, Jackson Williams. I'm Will Bowling. The hot light always on when RKW is on your airwaves. It is safe to say that on a Friday morning, our motto to the people, it has been fulfilled as 75% of the show. It is Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and we are acting like it.
It's true. Charles Jones. That smooth voice. Woo!
Yes, it is.
Party, baby.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood. 615-737-1045 is the number. We've got Justin Melo coming up in 15 minutes. An excellent source to talk Titans with us. Some available free agents to discuss. Some players maybe that are under the radar going into training camp. We'll hit it all with Justin coming up here in just about 15 minutes. Earlier in the show, VolQuest's Brent Hubbs joined us, as he does every Friday morning at 7:20. We asked him about the update as it pertains to Tony Vitello's contract extension. And Brent Hubbs had this to say about the Tennessee baseball coach and a pending extension that is on deck. Coming up in a moment.
Well, I mean, it's going to get done. It's just, and it was done in principle before they won the national championship. And if I were an agent and I were Tony's agent, I would have reminded Danny White, hey, the last head coaching contract you wrote, you put a clause in there that said if your coach wins the national title, and that's Kim Caldwell, she's the highest paid coach in her sport. Well, my guy just won it, so let's make him the highest paid coach in the sport. And so that's where they're at. They're just trying to hammer out the final details. I don't think Tony Vitello is worried about it. He and Josh Elander are at the Cape Cod League right now evaluating talent, transfer portal talent, and other junior college talent and guys out there. They're waiting to draft to see what's going to happen with their potential returning players and their incoming signees. And it's business as usual for Tony Vitello while his agent works on a new deal. And it'll get done. how quickly Tennessee's trying to get it done really quickly, and I think they're close. So maybe next week at some point that'll get announced, but I don't think anybody at Tennessee or in Vitello's camp is worried about Tony leaving at this point. And they're out working their roster, and Danny White's going to write a big check, a big one, a really big one.
There was Brent Hubs of AllQuest.
Yeah, but that big, though? 1.9, I think that's what Tim makes. 1.7.
Tim is over $2 million.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
no.
And Kevin O'Sullivan is a little bit lower than him, all of which are higher than Tony Vitello. I think that LSU's coach is another coach, too, that's also higher paid.
And Jim Schlossnagle is now the new gold standard, reportedly over $3 million. So you're talking about Tony Vitello needing a $3 million extension.
I mean, he should get that. I'm sorry. That's...
Okay,
he should. He just won a national championship.
I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm just looking at the fact that the guys that were holding that distinction have won more championships. They've either had more SEC Coach of the Year.
Jim Schlossnagle's not won more championships.
Well, right. I'm talking about Tim or Kevin.
They've been around longer.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked the question of Brent, like, being at Tennessee, is that the kind of program that would allow him to have this conversation like Kevin, because he's been there since 2008, or like Tim, since he's been at Vandy since 2003?
It should be.
But it would take him being, I think, in one space consistently for them to understand the value to want to make him the highest paid. I mean, sure. I think in today's climate, in the game that we're playing with like Schlossnagle, Texas paid him what was necessary to lure him away from a situation that he only been at for 3 years and had taken to a national championship. So it just showed their resources and what they're willing to pay to get a coach of that caliber, right? But it's not to say that his awards, his accolades were far better than those of Tim Corbin or Kevin O'Sullivan.
Right. And nowadays you don't see, it is kind of what have you done for me now, lately, right? In coaching, we've seen a lot of these guys, they're not necessarily the winningest of all time, getting the highest paid contracts. You are seeing a little bit more of a mix now of, I almost look at it as like the NFL, in wide receivers, just who kind of sets the tone for everybody else. And right now I do think it should be Tony Vitello.
I think he's earned it. And I think at this point it shows again the financial commitment that Danny White is willing to make in winners at the University of Tennessee, regardless of sport, regardless of who hired them, because Danny White did not hire Tony Vitello. That was John Curry, of course. But I think at this point, Tennessee is hoping to prove that they can pay with the best. And that was not always the case under previous administrations. The fundraising ability of Danny White and the just pure money-making ability of Tennessee athletics to be in the black in a big way right now comes very valuable when guys like this are up for big-time extensions.
That's because they follow the Chick-fil-A model, man. Chick-fil-A has better service on average. Why? Because they pay above the industry average. They always have a smile.
Talk about that in Buc-ee's, right?
In Buc-ee's too. Think about that. If they're above the average of whatever it is, then you would expect that to show in their performance of doing their jobs.
I'll tell you, Buc-ee's fulfills that 120%.
They even clap and cheer. We got
they
fresh
really
meat,
do.
All kinds of craziness. You got a mascot walking. There you go. Exactly. It sets itself apart from any other truck stop. Why? Because it's above average. Mm-hmm. So when you pay above average, right, Chick-fil-A, and stop putting them drugs in the chicken, and then and we'll be all right.
Lawsuit coming your way.
I was gonna say the ones over in our neighborhood need to step it up a little, though. I've had some
listen, why is there always lines at Chick-fil-A? You'll sit there for hours in Chick-fil-A line. You know why? Because you'll be happy when you leave there. By and large, they won't screw up your order, and they don't give you an attitude when they hand it to you.
That's right.
Why? Because they're making more money than their counterparts. Mm-hmm. Same thing if we said about Danny. Danny's like, you know what? I'm going to keep Tony happy. I'm paying him above the industry average. Yeah.
Yep.
Our question of the morning is, if you could take a former Titan, put him on the 2024 roster in their prime for a 1-year deal, who would it be? Our guy Bam, call it in with us, 615-737-1045. What's up, Bam?
Bam.
Hello, you're on.
Hello.
Bam. Uh-oh.
He's ordering a Chick-fil-A right now.
Yeah, I think he's in line at wherever he's going to
when you like set your phone down, like on the other, that's what it does sound like.
He missed his opportunity.
I think he was going to say Adrian Peterson.
Oh.
It said AP.
Jackson, is that who he was going to say?
AP?
Yes, it was AP.
Okay.
Wow.
Because a lot of people forgot he was here.
It's funny how some of you guys are picking guys that were they Titans?
We're
really?
here for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, but they technically were.
You picking
They
Reynolds?
technically were.
If I'm taking one of the cup of coffee guys, it's Randy Moss.
I hear you.
We've got good running backs already. 2 of them. Randy Moss with Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins.
Holy moly.
It'd be decent.
Right?
It'd be very decent.
It'd be wild.
I was going to say I could throw another one at you, but Lloyd Cushenberry kind of negates it. But Kevin Mawai, center.
Okay, offensive guy. I see you.
Put Cushenberry at guard. Probably not.
Well, I see your Kevin Mawai, and I go Mark Stepnoski.
As another one said, Big Country at right tackle.
Yeah, but then Mark Stepnoski might be considered one of those Reynolds that we talked about, even though he was still playing at a high level, not like Randy when he got here or Julio when he got here. He still cemented himself as one of the greats as a Cowboy, not a Oiler or Titan.
Yeah.
Big Country, David Stewart.
Big Country.
Be a good option.
David didn't say much. He always used to say, David Stewart, Mississippi State.
State.
And the thing, I loved my relationship with David because David was a man of few words, but he always found a joke or two to have with me.
I like that.
It feels like offensive linemen are either that or they're the total other end of the spectrum, where like you get radio hosts and you get people that can talk your ear off, respectfully. Obviously, you do a great job. So does Ramon. But like, you know what I mean, right? Like, I feel like you either get really talkative or really quiet offensive linemen.
Great point.
You know what the consistency of that is, right? What position did Taylor play?
Left tackle.
What position did I play?
Left tackle.
Ramon's a guard. He's talkative. We can't get him to shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's like right tackles have a screw loose.
NPF is quiet.
Yeah, that's because NPF is crazy because they'll probably hurt you more. You know what I'm saying? Like John Runyon knew more ways to hurt you than anything else. That's another quiet guy. David Stewart, another quiet guy. Fred Miller, not so much a quiet guy. He's relatively quiet when it comes to like, the charisma of a room, whatever else. But I think that by and large, it's the position because those right tackles, you always say right tackles are what? They're run blockers. They're the nasty identity of the offensive line. So you don't expect the guy that can hit you over the face with a beer mug to be able to guy that's going to carry the conversation in the room either, right? That guy's soily over there. He's crazy. He's half cocked.
We need to figure that one out then this year.
I love
we need that.
When I search Big Country, right tackle Titans, and David Stewart pops up, the first question under people also ask is, what happened to Nicholas Petit-Frere?
Oh, my gosh.
Dang.
Boom, 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 boom.
Nicholas Petit-Frere.
Coming up, Justin Melo will join us. Writing about the NFL everywhere, the Draft Network, Broadway Sports Media. He will join us coming up next. We'll talk some Titans with Justin on the other side. Friday morning continues here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will with Brad Hopkins filling in for the Big Ragu this morning. Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Joining us, talking Titans, he is everywhere, talking to players, writing about the league, covering the Titans for Broadway Sports Media. He is our good friend, Justin Melo, who joins us this morning. Justin, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Appreciate you for having me on. I've been enjoying this little midsummer break before training camp ramps up in a couple weeks here.
Absolutely. Right? We have as well. It has allowed us, Justin, to get into some different kind of topics. I'm curious. We've been talking about this morning about if you could put one Titans player from the past in their prime on a one-year deal on this current Titans roster, who would it be? Do you have one that comes to mind?
Wow, that's a great question. If given more time to think, I might go with a different answer. But when I look at the depth chart at safety now, kind of tough for me not to go with Kevin Byard, right? It's interesting to go with a guy that's still playing, that just got a fairly lucrative contract already this offseason from the Bears. But you look at what they've got at safety, I would go with Kevin, especially in his prime. What do you have, 8 or 9 interceptions in his best season? So
and he stood on the Dallas Star.
That's
Who
right.
can forget on prime time? On prime time.
That's right. You can blame me for not prepping you in that ahead of time, Justin, but still a valid answer for sure.
You can also appreciate Justin's thought to go practically, right?
Sure.
Strategically, right? It's not like he went to be entertained. It's not like he chose a guy that he remembered most back in the day or that stood out to him. He said, you know what? Who could actually help this team? So he went straight to the safety spot.
I like it.
Yep.
I like it. Well, Justin, let's talk about another safety who shares a name with you, and Justin Simmons, still out there on the safety market, and a lot of safeties that are still out there available for the Titans potentially with training camp in less than a month. Who do you think is the best fit for this defense and this scheme at that position?
Well, Justin Simmons is not only the easy answer, I think it's the right answer, right? Like, you look at what they've got at safety right now. They didn't draft one in the 2024 draft. We're looking at Amani Hooker and I guess Elijah Molden being the other starter at that spot. And then you look at the depth and you start to get even more concerned. Not only, number one, Hooker's been a little bit injury prone. I loved him when he's on the field. Great player, but he's got to stay healthy. Molden, a sub-package nickel guy, more of a third safety type. But then you look behind them, and it's Matthew Jackson, a second-year UDFA, and it's Shaheem Carter and Mike Brown. A couple of guys that have been on again, off again practice squatters for this team. The depth is really concerning, right? And look, they've shown interest in the safety market. Every Titans fan, I think, knows they were linked to Justin Simmons when free agency opened. They brought Marcus May in for a visit a couple months ago now. May recently signing with the Miami Dolphins, a low-cost one-year deal, by the way. No longer available. He was a guy that had connections to the new defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson. But that safety market, it's still flushed with quality players. Justin Simmons certainly at the top of that list, but also guys like Quandre Diggs, Eddie Jackson, guys that could come in and start right away, as a matter of fact, when you look at this depth chart. So Justin Simmons is by far the most important player available right now that could still help this team, but there are a couple of other veteran options as well.
Justin Melo of the Draft Network, covered the Titans as well at Broadway Sports Media, is our guest. Justin, I know you wrote at the Draft Network at Inside Linebacker about potential landing spots for Shaq Leonard. And you've got the Titans on this list with a couple of other teams in Chicago, with the Rams as well. In your opinion, should the Titans still be in the market to add at inside linebacker?
I don't see it happening. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't want to trash my own piece here, but when you look around the league and you look at teams that need an inside linebacker, that's how I approached that article. Outside looking in, right, if you're not a Titans guy, hard to argue with, right? I think it was Mike Clay of ESPN who recently ranked all 32 inside linebacker rooms in the league. He had the Titans at number 32. Worst room in the league. Hard to argue with, right, if you're an out like Kenneth Murray is your number one guy, replacing Azeez Shire, who was fifth in the league in tackles last year with 163. Kenneth Murray doesn't come to Tennessee with a very good reputation, right? That's one of the moves that Rand Carthon made this offseason that sort of generated the most question marks, I think, from the fan base, and he's your number one. Right behind them, you're looking at guys like Cedric Gray, a 4th-round rookie, Jack Gibbons, who this entire fan base was convinced was going to lose his starting job. No longer looking like the case, right? If you followed along closely, OTAs, mandatory camp. And then you've also got Otis Reese in there, a second-year UDFA, who flashed a little towards the conclusion of the season. But there are a lot of question marks in this room, a lot of them. It starts at the top, and it also starts with who's going to start opposite a guy like Kenneth Murray. So if you're writing that piece from the outside looking in, hard to argue that the Titans don't need help at that position.
He is Justin Melo from the Draft Network. He covers the Tennessee Titans, of course. And the first question I have for you, Justin, is how important is T'Vondre Sweat's health status? Meaning, if he's not available to go, that investment of a second-round pick, that's a pretty pivotal pick, right? What's the status if he's not in there? I mean, Jeffrey Simmons has been handling the interior for a long time, but he could definitely use some help.
Well, it's incredibly important. First of all, you hit the nail on the head with it starts with the baseline expectation. You're a second-round pick, a top 45 pick. We've got to have you healthy. We got to have you in the lineup. This is a rebuilding roster. This is not the Kansas City Chiefs that might draft a second-rounder and develop him for a bit. No, they need T'Vondre Sweat to play immediately. And when I think of it, what I add to that is, what about the depth behind them? That's a common theme throughout this conversation, but it's Sebastian Joseph Day, who was cut last year by the Chargers, latched on with the 49ers near the end of the year, but barely played, right? He's the next man up in that room. And then behind him, it's guys who have even less experience, who are even less proven. It's a Keandre Coburn, a second-year D3 pick of another franchise. It's a Quinton Bohanna, who they signed last year because they were down a ton of bodies on the interior. It's Marlon Davidson, who I think is better suited to play D-end, but maybe he gets into that mix. It's a TK McClendon Jr., a second-year UDFA who spent most of the year on the practice squad and got called up late. So there are really no answers behind T'Vondre Sweat, no straightforward answers, at least, on this roster. So, yeah, you're talking about the expectations of a second-round pick. That's a no-brainer. But it's also about who's playing if they don't have him out there. So, yeah, it's incredibly important that he's healthy, and it's got to start at training camp. He's got to be ready here in mid-July when they report.
All right, J-Mel, what position do you think the Titans should be most proactive at addressing? Maybe a spot that they're a little thin in. Maybe got a quality guy there, but it could get off the rails quick. A position that should be addressed sooner than later.
Well, I would say safety, but because we've already talked about that one, I'll pivot maybe to edge rusher. I think there's not a lot of depth there. You're factoring that Harold Landry and Arden Key are going to be your starters. Remember, Arden Key was more of a rotational guy last year, and Brian Callahan, new head coach himself, earlier this offseason, he called him a rotational rusher. Well, that's not the case on this roster, right? Like, he's an every down guy or near an every down guy opposite Harold Landry. The number 3 is going to be Rashad Weaver. It looks like all checks and bounces point there. And then there are even more questions behind them, right? Caleb Murphy, a second-year UDFA, led them in preseason sacks last year, made the initial 53, played less than 10 defensive snaps. He might be the number 4. You're also looking at a Jalen Harrell, a rookie 7th-round pick out of Michigan. And don't sleep on, Kayla, was it you, I think, who may have said this? Thomas Rush, from what I understand, looked quite good there at OTA's mandatory camp. He's also a second-year UDFA, spent the whole year last season on the practice squad. I've heard rumblings that he can push Caleb Murphy and even a Jalen Harrell for that roster spot. They got another intriguing rookie UDFA in Khalil Duke out of Kansas State. They gave some pretty good money in undrafted free agency, but those are big questions, all of them, right? Starting at Arden Key down, all of them are big question marks. I look at what's available on the market, not a lot, right? 2 guys that I think would qualify as intriguing reclamation projects with ties to the staff. Carl Lawson spent a little bit of time with Callahan in Cincinnati. He's been run through the ringer with injuries lately. And then Tyus Bowser, a guy who did not get on the field for the Ravens last year, missed the whole year with injury, but he's had some success in the past. And, of course, he was at least in that room, with Denard Wilson last year in Baltimore. So safety would rank number 1 for me, but then I quickly look at the edge outside linebacker position.
Justin Melo of the Draft Network joining us this morning on RKW. Let's go to this offensive line where the right side continues to be a major question mark just from, I think, the lack of bodies that were out there in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, at least that we know of right away. But one name that we saw a lot out of early on is Sadiq Charles. Where do you see him fitting in this year? Because he pretty much got most of the reps with the ones at that right guard spot.
I think he's going to be the starting right guard. I think now currently we're looking at what's probably a three-man competition between him, last year's starter Daniel Brunskill, and then Dylan Radins, right? Sort of a utility, former second rounder, hasn't quite panned out the way they hoped he would. But I think Sadiq Charles is going to be the starter. I mean, if you read what Bill Callahan said the very first time he met with you guys, he almost flat out said that he was the reason they signed him in free agency. Maybe he stopped short of that, but he did say he's a guy that I identified on film as a good fit for us in free agency. Now, that's the type of assistant coach that's got some pull with the GM, wouldn't you think? So for him to say something like that, it certainly feels like they targeted him based on Bill Callahan's recommendation. And when you look at his history, Callahan's history, he's preferred guards that are bigger body types, 320, 25 pounds, natural athleticism. That's what Charles brings to the table. Now, there's a bit of risk here. He has not played very well in the NFL. In fact, I think the Washington Commanders last year might have been one of only two offensive lines that were worse than what the Tennessee Titans had out there. And he was a starter on that team and gave up a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks. So you're hoping that, with some better guys around him, the built-in chemistry he has with the center, Lloyd Cushenberry, based on the fact that they played together at LSU back in college, a national championship winning team, you're hoping you can get the most out of him. But when you ask me where he fits, I think he's going to be the starting right guard.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with you on that right now. Absolutely. Let's look at cornerback. And we know the starting caliber cornerbacks have been upgraded, but you always have to be concerned about depth. I don't know what it is with the Titans in particular, too, but that's been an issue with injuries. We're hoping that's not the issue moving forward, but in the years past. So you look at a guy in terms of maybe that could make the roster. Let's talk about Gabe Jeudy-Lally, obviously a Vol, and somebody who, at least early on in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, got some reps, more than he probably expected, and really was kind of impressive.
Absolutely. I've got him on my early projection of the 53-man roster based on those performances. I spent a lot of time with Gabe, actually, throughout the pre-draft process. He had a good year at Tennessee this past year. He had an even better year at BYU the year before. Now, I've been around long enough to connect the dots. I was pretty confident he was going to be a Titans UDFA. They had him there at the local workout day. He told me that he spent hours with the coaches and the assistant coaches, even the assistant GM, after the workout concluded. He even fielded punts, something he hadn't done in a while. He was out there on the punt return team. When you look at the depth, we know what the top three are, right, with Snead, Awuzie, and McCreary. But nickel is the new base, right? Those three guys are going to play a lot of snaps. So sorry if it's pessimistic, but the chances of all three of them making it through a 17-game season unscathed isn't particularly likely. So you're going to have some depth come in and play a role at some point. I don't see any reason why Gabe Jeudy-Lally can't be the fourth, fifth, or at worst sixth cornerback on this team. Now, they do got a fifth-round rookie in Jarvis Brownlee Jr. You expect he might be the first man up. They've got Trey Avery, a third-year UDFA who's made the 53 in back-to-back years and has played when other guys have gotten injured. But, it's also his third year. He hasn't shown a lot of development. If I'm looking at a higher upside guy, I think that's Gabe Jeudy-Lally, and I do think he's going to make this 53. Right now, I got him beating out guys like, Caleb Farley, who I think the story's probably been written on, Tay Gowan and Anthony Kendall, who did play a lot of special team snaps last year, by the way, so don't write him off. But as of now, I got him beating out those types to make this 53-man roster.
Justin, at this point, do you have any other undrafteds who you feel like are on the inside looking out? And if not, who is the undrafted player outside of Gabe Jeudy-Lally with the best chance of making this team, in your opinion?
Well, I look at Cole Spencer, the interior guard. They gave him a lot of money. I mean, by their standards, they gave him a lot of money. He got the most money out of any of the UDFAs on the Titans. So you got to think that plays a role. My initial 53, I had them keeping 10. I had them as the 10th guy, but there is a lot of competition there, so that's by no means a lock. The other, a couple of the other ones that intrigue me, Dylan Johnson, the running back out of Washington, prolific year last year for the Huskies. That is a fierce competition, though, for the RB3 spot between him, I think Julius Chestnut, and Hassan Haskins. With all respect to Jabari Small, the other UDFA, I think he's probably on the outside looking in. But Johnson and Spencer sort of capture my attention. And then another outside, don't underrate the tight ends. They don't have a lot of depth at tight end 3. Nick Vanett, a veteran journeyman they signed recently. Thomas Udakoya, we all know, is the international exemption guy who's been around. But they signed 2 UDFA tight ends. And very interesting to me, one of them being an athletic one with higher pass-catching upside in David Martin Robinson, and the other one being a blocker first type player through and through, and Steven Stilianos out of Iowa. Don't be surprised if one of them beat out Vanett for that tight end 3 role.
Justin Melo of the Draft Network and Broadway Sports Media has been our guest. Justin_M_NFL, a must follow if you are a Titans fan or NFL fan, and if of course you are, if you're listening to us. Justin, excellent stuff as always, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you.
Thanks,
yes,
Melo.
sir. Justin Melo with us this morning. Brad, I'm curious from the player perspective, when does an undrafted guy really start to catch your attention? Because talking to Coach Mack, talking to Ramon, a guy like Gabe Jeudy-Lally, who made an impact with shorts on, it's noteworthy. When does that, for you as a player, start to move the needle where you're saying, oh, this guy maybe can play a little bit?
They carry themselves differently because they understand from a competitive standpoint that they can actually compete with guys that have a higher projected upside than they do. Maybe they're unknown, come from a relatively obscure program, or, they've had to prove themselves their entire career or whatever it is, but they walk differently. And I think that once they understand the opportunity that they have and that they actually can compete with those guys that have been, revered as better than them, then they really take another step. There have been tons of dudes that I played with that no one saw coming from left field because there wasn't a lot of a discussion about who they were. They didn't come from some, highly regarded programs or whatever. But when they got in that moment, they stood there with them same shoes on and looked confident in what they were trying to do and their abilities. So it does kind of come to you relatively quickly, a guy that comes to you with a lower round per draft, like a 6th or 7th round pick, but all of a sudden he carries himself like he's a day one dude. That guy, he really does start to, and you start to support him too, because you want to see, hey, this is a journeyman of sorts. This is somebody that had to gamble and bet on himself his entire career, and now we start to see why. Because one, he has the work ethic. He understands that some things weren't easy to come by for him, so he's had to work for every single thing that he's ever gotten, and it's been that moniker that has gotten him afforded him the luxury of being able to be in that situation.
Right.
615-737-1045. I'll get you on your way for more things going on this weekend. And I've got a question for you philosophically, a life question. I need to ask the people when we come back. It's Ramon and Kayla. We'll wrap it up the week next. Wrap it up the show and wrap it up another great week right here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Back at it again Monday. Brad Hopkins will be here hanging out with us once again. Looking forward to that.
We're going to fly like the wind, Will.
Yes, sir.
I love this song, by the way. When you played this, Jackson, yesterday, I think on Buck's show, I was like singing along in the car. Yeah.
So is Jackson.
That's right, Jax.
So I have a life question for you.
Oh, no.
The Bear just came out.
Yeah, I watched first episode last night.
Do you allow yourself on a show that is one of your favorite shows, and this for me is one of my favorite shows in recent memory, do you allow yourself to watch it all at once, or do you ration it over a period of time? I can't decide what I am going to do.
I'm not in that space yet, Will. I don't binge watch things. I don't even watch series with appointment listening or viewing in mind. I'm of the old school that when stuff used to come on once a week, you just tuned in then and you watched it, But nowadays you have the ability to, do you want to sit here and watch another one? That seems to be the question.
Some things they still tailor out week by week. A lot of Apple new series, if they're new, they are week by week. But you're right. A lot of them you can binge. And I think they have 3 episodes out right now for the Bear.
They've got the whole thing out.
Oh, they have the whole episode? Oh,
and that's
or the whole series. Okay.
That's the thing. I would need to watch it week to week only because I don't know what to then go into next after I've binge watched this series. If I'm done watching this series in 3 days because I don't watch 6 episodes a day, now by the end of the week, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
I know. I've gone through a lot of binging lately with TV shows.
Out of context, sounds great.
I know. And I feel like I'm running out of them. So I think I'm going to actually pace this one out, The Bear.
So I'm loving Your Honor right now.
Oh, I finished it.
Good Lord.
How long did it take you?
World.
How long did it take you?
I wish I could.
Half.
Goodness.
See what I'm saying?
Because I stay up too late, you guys.
Whatever happened to seasons? You remember when you used to watch Chips the Chips back in the day? Guess what? That series would have taken you all summer to watch. Now you can watch it as much as you want and be done with it in a day if you stay committed.
Because I've got a couple irons in the fire. I've got Your Honor that's going on right now.
So good.
I've not done Sunday's House of the Dragon because I was out at dinner in Omaha. So I've not done that one yet.
House of the Dragon. Is that a spinoff of Game of Thrones?
Oh, it's the prequel, Brett.
Shut up.
It's fantastic.
Are you serious?
It is.
See, now you're going to be.
Now you got
It is,
me.
Brad, it is fantastic. And I would not, if I don't like a show, I'll tell you. I'm not in on every show.
Is Khaleesi in this one too?
No.
What?
See, now he's out.
Prequel.
So it's
hundreds
her
of
mom
years
or
before.
Hundreds of years before her.
But it works.
So his mama's mama's mama.
Now I got to see this.
Dang it, I'm jealous of you because season 1 is great, and we had to wait 2 years for the new season to come out. Episode 2 just aired on Sunday. And the cliffhanger it leaves you on from season 1 to season 2 is significant. So we've all been waiting for 2 years, and you could just do it in,
Hold on a second. Let me ask you something.
Weeks,
is it as raunchy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not as much as like season 1 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I mean, season 1.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah, Chosen. I'm watching Presumed Innocent too on Apple TV right now. I just finished
Apple does
the
have
third.
good shows.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
I
in
just
the
watched-
YouTube chat. Somebody
YouTube.
commented.
Sorry. Yeah. I also just finished Blackbird on Apple TV. That's an older one, I think.
What's that?
It's based on a real life story of a serial killer, and they put a guy in jail to pretty much have him admit to him.
That sounds fun.
Befriends him. It's really good.
They put somebody in jail to get the confession from the
befriend him.
this guy. That's like what's that 30-day thing where they have those people go into jail
Yes.
for 30 days and try and get the scoop.
Scary.
Would you do that, Kayla?
No.
I think I'd rather just binge it. I'd rather just
You're
get it all
binging?
done. I don't
Okay.
know. So the part of me thinks I need to finish Your Honor first. I'm at the end of season 1 of Your Honor before I can go to another show because I don't want to have too many irons in the fire at once.
Yeah.
The thing about The Bear, though, is that these are short episodes typically with The Bear. And that is the case again this year. That you usually have one really long one and then you have a bunch of really short ones.
Let me warn you. The first one, Will, that I watched last night is a
What was
long
it?
one. And it's a
Only
lot
27 minutes.
Well, what I mean by that is it takes you back. So it feels long, right? It takes you back through everything kind of that he's been through leading up to
Interesting.
now.
Okay. Well, I've already accidentally just seen the description of what the last episode says, so I don't know what that means, and I don't really want to know any more details, but I guess now I'm just going to have to watch it really quick. It is such a good show.
I said really quick.
People always talk about the...
really quick.
People talk about The Bear like it's too stressful of a show, and it is a very stressful show. If you are the person that gets secondhand anxiety from watching people in anxious moments, it's not for you. However, it also has the most like peaceful and serene episodes. Like they will have
what is that? Peaceful and
The Bear
serene.
does like peaceful episodes of just like very like no conflict, just like nice happy episodes.
They're not in the kitchen.
So they'll do like one of the one last year though is when he went and made all the pastries in Denmark.
Oh, that's right. What that
It
was
just
a little bit more
it was
peaceful.
very peaceful and serene. And
They can make a show about anything, man.
Seriously.
It's really good. I got a buddy that lives in Chicago who saw all of the cast like on the street one day,
That's so
just
cool.
in Chicago.
Did I tell you that my son saw Ramsay from Game of Thrones?
Really?
He waited on him, and he did a Scottish accent. My son's Scottish accent is so good that Ramsay thought he was from Scotland.
Are you serious?
He did.
That's impressive.
Well, no, Colin does impressions like you would not believe. He actually, it's amazing.
That's your older son.
No, that's Colin's my middle son.
Middle son.
Well,
Okay.
I say older. They're literally a year apart.
Okay.
Their birthday's 4 days apart, Bryson and Colin's. But Colin, he's a master impressionist.
That's great.
And he actually was waiting on Ramsay at a restaurant he was working at, and he started breaking out into this
Tell him
accent.
to call in Monday as somebody.
Oh, don't do that, because he'll do it. He'll
I'm
do
serious.
it.
Colin, if you're listening, call in on Monday.
And he has an unbelievable personality. That guy right there. Everybody
That's
loves
cool.
Colin.
I love Sue Ann on YouTube says, I love The Bear. Who doesn't want to find a bunch of money in canned tomatoes? That's 100%
Heck yeah.
right. 100%
Hopefully it was in
right.
plastic. Was the bag in plastic?
No.
Just money in it, just cash.
Money
Yeah.
and tomatoes.
Uh-huh.
It's the sauce. Special family recipe.
Saucy.
Left behind by a departed relative.
Right, literally.
Such a good show. It always makes me really hungry watching The Bear, and I am moving today again. I'm moving all weekend.
Good luck
My
with that.
kitchen stuff not totally set up yet, so it's not like I'll be able to just hop in and make something. But
You and that air mattress too, huh? When you get in your regular
I
mattress.
know. I'll have my bed tonight.
Oh, good job. Congratulations.
Bed that will be bug free, thank God.
There we go. Thank you.
You spraying-
If
are
you
you
missed
spraying
it,
your
I've
stuff?
Give you a
been,
round of applause for that one.
Well, no, it will be taken, like everything will be washed for
That'd be
sure.
nice.
And my bed will have to be taken apart to get it out of my apartment. So there won't be any bugs in it because it will be totally taken apart.
I'm so sorry, Will. I can see you in your new
know.
digs.
It's,
and all of a sudden, like a roach comes walking across
No,
you.
it's not
we will
gonna
not
happen.
put
It's
that
not
on
gonna
him.
happen.
We will not put that on
but
him.
I'm serious. There's a 0% chance that happens. Like every time I unpack a box, I like make sure that there aren't bugs in it, and then I unpack the box. So there's no chance.
Okay.
Plus, it's a clean, sanitary new place. It's a
hear
brand
you.
new building.
And you said that it's about the place that you lived in.
Don't
didn't
want to
you?
hear it.
He's stepping on
If you're
those
unfamiliar,
roaches.
I live in an old building and I'm infested with cockroaches, so I moved. Not something that I was planning on doing in the middle of the Nashville SC season when things are very busy, but we make it work. Back at it Monday morning. Brad Hopkins will be back with us, and we look forward to seeing you. Enjoy your Friday. You can continue acting like it, even though the show's over. The Buck Rising Show is, he's already here.
Oh, I'm sick of this
Maybe
earliness.
trying to atone for the fact that he didn't come to RKW.
Get Buck out of here.
He is here? He is here.
I can't believe
And
this.
he is on your radio waves coming up next.